Commander Zethra stood on the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Crimson Talon, watching the blue and green planet rotate slowly on the main display screen. His 3 eyes narrowed as he reviewed the scan data with growing satisfaction. This world would be easy, perhaps the easiest conquest in his 20-year military career. Another primitive world, his second officer reported, her voice carrying barely concealed disappointment. They have barely reached their own moon. Chemical rockets, nuclear fission, fragmented into hundreds of competing nations. No unified planetary government, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Zethra clicked his mandibles in amusement. The Vylran Empire had conquered 847 worlds across the galaxy. This one, listed in their database as Sol 3, would become number 848 before the week ended. The humans living there had no idea what was coming. They were children playing with fire, thinking themselves advanced because they had split the atom and touched the void of space with clumsy metal capsules. Estimated resistance level? Zethra asked, already knowing the answer. Minimal, Commander. Their most powerful weapons are fusion warheads, primitive explosive devices. Our shields can absorb thousands of such impacts without degradation. Their military forces use projectile weapons and crude aircraft. Conquest estimate, 72 hours. 72 hours. 3 days to add another world to the Empire's collection. 3 days to secure the resources of an entire planet. The humans would surrender quickly once they saw the futility of resistance. They always did. There. Ender. There. Prepare the standard ultimatum, Zethra commanded. Broadcast it in all their major languages. Give them 12 hours to respond with unconditional surrender. The communications officer worked quickly, accessing the database of human languages. The Empire had been monitoring Earth's radio and television broadcasts for months. They knew everything about humanity. Their wars, their divisions, their fears. This knowledge made conquest simple. The humans were not united. They would not fight together. Some would surrender immediately, hoping for favorable treatment. Others would resist uselessly, wasting lives for pride. The message went out across every frequency, every communications channel humanity possessed. Television broadcasts were interrupted. Radio signals were overridden. Internet connections displayed the same message in thousands of languages simultaneously. People of Earth, you have been located by the Vylran Empire. Your world now falls within our territorial expansion zone. You will surrender all military forces immediately. You will accept imperial governors and administration. Resistance is futile. Your weapons are primitive. Your defenses are inadequate. You have 12 hours to respond with total submission. Failure to comply will result in military occupation and the destruction of your major cities. This is your only warning. Across Earth, chaos erupted instantly. In Washington, D.C., the president was rushed to a secure bunker. In Moscow, military forces went to high alert. In Beijing, generals argued about response options. In London, Parliament convened in emergency session. Across the world, billions of humans looked up at the sky with fear, anger, and disbelief. Alien life existed, and it wanted to conquer them. The United Nations held an emergency meeting. Representatives from every nation gathered, their ancient differences suddenly seeming small in the face of an external threat. But unity did not come easily. Some nations wanted to negotiate. Others demanded immediate military response. A few hoped the message was an elaborate hoax. We should launch our nuclear arsenal, one general argued. Show them we will not submit without a fight. That would be suicide, another countered. If they can travel between stars, our weapons might be useless against them. We must try to communicate, a diplomat insisted. Perhaps they can be reasoned with. Perhaps they want resources we can trade. The arguments continued for hours. No consensus emerged. Humanity had faced many challenges in its history, but never one like this. Never an enemy from the stars. With technology beyond comprehension, Commander Zethra watched the chaos with satisfaction. The humans were responding exactly as predicted. Confusion, fear, division. Some were already broadcasting messages of surrender. Others were positioning their primitive military forces. A few were launching their nuclear missiles toward the Imperial fleet, a gesture of defiance that would accomplish nothing. "Intercept the incoming missiles," Zethra ordered casually. "Use the point defense systems. Make it clear how outmatched they are." The nuclear weapons humanity launched with such hope were destroyed effortlessly. Laser systems locked onto each missile the moment it left the atmosphere, tracking trajectories with perfect precision. One by one, the weapons detonated harmlessly in space. Flashes of light that faded quickly in the void. Dozens of nuclear warheads, enough to devastate continents, eliminated like insects. On Earth, military commanders watched in horror. Their most powerful weapons had been swatted aside without effort. The alien ships had not even moved to avoid the missiles. They had simply destroyed them casually, almost contemptuously. "Prepare landing forces," Zethra commanded. "The humans have 8 hours remaining in their ultimatum, but they have already demonstrated their intent to resist. Begin the occupation. Land forces at their major cities. Avoid excessive casualties if possible. Dead humans cannot work in the resource extraction facilities." 500 landing craft launched from the Imperial fleet. Each carried a full battalion of Vilran soldiers, equipped with plasma rifles, energy shields, and powered armor. They would sweep through Earth's cities, overwhelming the primitive human defenders with superior firepower. Resistance would collapse within hours. The landing craft entered Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, streaking across the sky in precise formation. They targeted New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow, Delhi, Sao Paulo, Cairo. Major population centers where the show of force would be most effective. Once these cities fell, the rest of the planet would surrender. But something was wrong. The first indication came from the sensor stations. Deep underground, in places humans had never explored, strange readings appeared. Energy signatures that should not exist. Power sources activating after being dormant for millions of years. Massive, impossible, incomprehensible. "Commander," the science officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. "I am detecting unusual activity from the planet. Significant energy buildups at multiple locations. Underground, deep underground." Zethra frowned. "What kind of energy?" "Unknown, Commander. The readings are extraordinary. Power levels that should not be possible from a primitive civilization. And the patterns are wrong. They are not coming from human facilities. They are coming from the planet itself." "Explain," Zethra demanded, feeling the first stirring of concern. "I cannot, Commander. The energy sources are located deep in the planetary crust. Some at the core. The humans cannot have built them. They lack the technology to excavate at such depths. Yet the power signatures are there, and they are increasing. Across Earth, seismographs went wild. Earthquake sensors detected movement, but not from natural tectonic activity. Something else was happening. Something unprecedented. In California, geologists stared at their instruments in confusion. In Japan, researchers checked and rechecked their data, convinced their equipment was malfunctioning. In Chile, at the great observatories, scientists noticed something impossible. The moon's orbit had shifted, only by a tiny amount, barely measurable, but it had moved. Satellites confirmed it. The moon had adjusted its position by exactly 300 meters. "That is impossible," one astronomer whispered. "The moon does not just move. Something would have to push it. Something enormous, deep beneath the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of Earth's oceans." Something stirred. Metal surfaces that had been covered in sediment for 60 million years began to glow with blue light. Ancient mechanisms, older than humanity itself, activated with perfect precision. In the Sahara Desert, Beneath millions of tons of sand, massive structures hummed with sudden power. Underground chambers the size of cities began lighting up, their systems running through diagnostic checks after an impossibly long sleep. Beneath Antarctica's ice, under 2 miles of frozen water, geometric patterns appeared as power grids activated. The ice above began to melt slightly, steam rising in places no human had ever visited. And at Earth's core, surrounded by molten iron under crushing pressure, something awakened. Something vast. Something that had been waiting. The Vylran landing craft were 100 kilometers from the surface when every sensor on the Imperial fleet suddenly screamed warnings. The energy signatures from Earth had increased exponentially. Power readings were off the scale. The entire planet was lighting up like a sun. "Commander," the science officer shouted. "The planet is generating energy levels equivalent to our entire fleet's reactor output. No, more than that. 10 times more. 100 times. W. That is impossible." Zethra roared. "They are primitives." "How?" "It is not the humans, Commander. The energy is coming from the planet itself. The geological readings are all wrong. This world's structure. It is not natural. There are manufactured components in the crust. In the mantle. At the core. Commander, this is not a planet. This is." The transmission from Earth came simultaneously on every frequency. It was not in any human language. It was not in Vylran either. It was something older. A language the Empire's computers took precious seconds to begin translating. The voice was not organic. It was artificial, ancient, and utterly cold. Defense system active. Scanning threat level. Analyzing hostile forces. Calculating response parameters. 8, 2000, and D8. The moon moved again. This time, not 300 meters, 300 kilometers. It shifted in its orbit with impossible speed, repositioning itself between Earth and the Imperial fleet. The rock and dust covering its surface began to fall away, revealing what lay beneath. Metal. Geometric patterns. Weapon ports. The moon was not a moon. It was a weapons platform. Crew species identified. Human. Biological parameters confirmed. Transferring command authority to native population. Across Earth, 8 billion humans suddenly felt something new in their minds. A presence, a connection. Information flooding into their consciousness that they had no context for understanding. Images of systems and weapons and capabilities beyond comprehension. A neural link to something vast. Commander Zethra watched in growing horror as his fleet's sensors revealed the truth. Earth was not a natural planet. It was artificial. A construct. Every continent contained machinery. Every ocean concealed manufacturing facilities. The atmosphere itself was a multi-layered shield system that was only now powering up after millions of years of dormancy. They had not found a primitive world to conquer. They had found a dormant warship the size of a planet, and by invading, they had woken it up. The Vylran landing craft, still descending toward Earth's surface, suddenly found themselves targeted by weapon systems they could not identify. The targeting locks were perfect, tracking hundreds of small craft simultaneously with impossible precision. No warnings were given. No second chances. The first landing craft exploded in a flash of blue light. Then, another. Then, 10 at once. Within 30 seconds, all 500 landing craft were gone, vaporized by defense systems that had activated automatically. 500 battalions, the pride of the Vylran Empire's military, eliminated before they could even land. On the bridge of the Crimson Talon, alarms screamed. Zethra's 3 eyes widened in disbelief as his instruments showed him something that could not be real. The planet below was not just defending itself, it was preparing to attack. Weapon ports were opening on every continent. The moon was rotating, bringing massive cannons to bear. And deep in space, something was moving, something that had been hidden in the asteroid belt, camouflaged and dormant. Mars. The red planet was not a planet either. It was moving under its own power, accelerating toward Earth's position, another component of whatever ancient defense network humanity had unknowingly been living on. "Retreat," Zethra commanded. "All ships, retreat to jump distance immediately." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had not conquered Earth. They had awakened something that should have remained asleep. And now, 8 billion confused and frightened humans had just been given control of the most powerful weapons system the galaxy had ever seen. The message repeated across every frequency, translated now into Vialran with perfect clarity. Defense protocols engaged. Hostile forces detected. Neutralization authorized. This system is now under protection. Any further aggression will be met with total force. Earth began to glow. Not with the soft light of cities and civilization, but with the harsh blue radiance of weapons charging. Weapons that had been built by a civilization so advanced that they could turn entire worlds into warships. Weapons that humanity did not understand, but was now suddenly connected to. Weapons that were pointing directly at the Vialran fleet. Commander Zethra realized, in that moment of dawning horror, that his conquest of Earth would not take 72 hours. It would not take 72 days. It would not happen at all. Instead, he and his entire fleet might not survive the next 72 minutes. The primitives were not primitives. They were the crew of a world-scale warship. And the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her computer screen in complete disbelief. The geological data made no sense. None of it. She had been studying Earth's structure for 15 years, written her dissertation on tectonic plate movement, published papers in the most prestigious journals. She knew how planets worked, but the data flooding in from seismic stations worldwide told her that everything she knew was wrong. "This cannot be real," she whispered, checking the numbers for the 5th time. "This is impossible." Her colleague, Dr. James Morrison, looked over her shoulder at the display. His face had gone pale. "The readings are consistent across all stations. Sarah, look at this. The Pacific tectonic plate is not moving naturally. There are manufactured structures underneath it. Metal, composite materials, energy conduits the size of cities." Sarah pulled up satellite imagery, geological surveys, deep Earth scans. Every source told the same impossible story. Earth's interior was not what it should be. The core was generating power in ways that violated every law of physics. The mantle contained geometric structures that could not have formed naturally. The crust itself had massive components that were clearly artificial, hidden under miles of natural rock. "How long have these been here?" James asked quietly. Sarah did the calculations, her hands shaking. "Based on the sediment layers, the mineral deposits, the way continental drift has moved over them, millions of years. Tens of millions. Maybe more. These structures are older than human civilization. Older than human species. They were here before we evolved." Across the world, scientists were reaching the same horrifying conclusion. In Moscow, geophysicists stared at scan results, showing the Siberian plateau contained massive power generators. In Australia, researchers discovered that the entire continent sat atop what could only be described as a weapons platform. In South America, seismic arrays revealed the Amazon basin concealed manufacturing facilities of incredible complexity. Earth was not a natural planet. It was a construct. Something had built it, or converted it, long before humans existed. And now, with the alien invasion, it had woken up. The President of the United States sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by generals and advisors, listening to reports that sounded like science fiction. But the evidence was overwhelming. The destroyed alien landing craft were real. The energy readings were real. And the strange sensation in everyone's mind, that odd new presence, was very real. "Mr. President," General Patterson said carefully, "we are receiving reports from personnel at NORAD, the Pentagon, NASA, and every military installation. They are all experiencing the same phenomenon. Some kind of neural connection. Information appearing in their minds. Schematics. Instructions. Access to systems they did not know existed. What kind of systems? The president asked. Patterson hesitated. Weapons systems, sir. Defense networks. The personnel describe it as having sudden knowledge of how to operate equipment that does not exist in any manual. Lieutenant Morrison at Cheyenne Mountain reports he can feel targeting sensors tracking the alien ships. Commander Richards at Naval Base San Diego says she has awareness of underwater launch platforms in the Pacific. Neither of them understand how they know these things. They just do. Number. Similar reports came from every nation. In China, military officers reported connection to systems buried beneath the Gobi Desert. In Russia, submarine crews detected massive underwater structures responding to their thoughts. In Europe, Air Force pilots felt inexplicable links to satellite networks that were not in any database. Humanity was connected to Earth. Not metaphorically. Actually, physically connected through some kind of neural interface that had activated when the planet's defense systems came online. 8 billion people suddenly had access to a weapons platform they did not understand. Built by a civilization they had never encountered. A young engineer named Marcus Webb sat at his desk in Seattle, staring at his hands. He could feel something new in his mind, like having a new sense he had never possessed before. If he concentrated, he could perceive things that should be invisible to him. Energy flows beneath the city. Power conduits. Weapon systems. Manufacturing bays. He closed his eyes and focused, letting the strange sensation guide him. Information flooded in. Technical specifications. Operational parameters. Targeting protocols. He was not an engineer anymore. Or rather, he was more than an engineer. He was a potential operator for systems of incredible complexity. In Seoul, a 17-year-old student named Ji-woo Park experienced the same connection. She sat in her apartment, ignoring the emergency broadcasts on television, exploring the strange knowledge appearing in her consciousness. It felt like accessing files on a computer, except the computer was somehow connected directly to her brain. She could sense weapons. Enormous weapons. Continental in scale. Without fully understanding what she was doing, Ji-woo reached out mentally and touched one of the systems, just to see what would happen. Just curious. In the East China Sea, a section of the ocean floor opened. A massive railgun, buried under sediment for millions of years, rose toward the surface. It rotated smoothly, orienting on targets in orbit. Targeting data streamed into Ji-woo's mind with perfect clarity. 2 alien warships. Distance, 380,000 kilometers. Threat level, high. Authorization, to engage, granted. Ji-woo hesitated, suddenly aware of the enormous power at her fingertips. She was 17. She had an exam tomorrow. She had never fired a gun in her life. And now she had access to a weapon that could destroy spaceships. The alien vessels were moving, repositioning to fire on population centers. Tokyo. Seoul. Shanghai. Millions would die if they opened fire. Ji-woo made her decision. She gave the mental command. The railgun fired. The projectile was a solid tungsten rod, 3 meters long, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. It crossed the distance to the alien warships in seconds. The first ship's shields flared briefly, then collapsed. The projectile punched through the hull like paper, the kinetic energy converting to an explosion that tore the warship apart from the inside. The second ship began evasive maneuvers, but Ji-woo had already fired again. Another tungsten rod. Another direct hit. 2 capital ships of the Vilran Empire, each capable of glassing a continent. Destroyed by a teenager in Seoul who was still wearing her school uniform. Ji-woo sat back in her chair, breathing hard. "What the hell did I just do?" she whispered. Across Earth, others were making similar discoveries. A retired general in Colorado found he could interface with the moon's targeting systems. He had been out of active service for 5 years, spending his time fishing and watching his grandchildren. Now he stood in his backyard, staring up at the sky, mentally connected to weapons batteries that could engage targets anywhere in near-Earth space. The Vialran fleet was in chaos. They had come expecting easy conquest. Instead, they faced weapons they could not predict, fired by operators who were learning the systems in real time. The primitives were not primitives. They had inherited an arsenal that exceeded the Empire's entire military capability. Commander Zethra watched his fleet's strength diminish with each passing minute. 6 more ships destroyed. Then 4 more. The attacks came from impossible angles. From the planet's surface. From the moon. From underwater platforms. From weapons hidden in asteroid clusters. Every system was waking up. And every system was deadly. "We must withdraw," his second officer insisted. "Commander, we are losing ships faster than we can retreat. This is not a battle. This is slaughter." Zethra wanted to argue, but the data was undeniable. His invasion force was being systematically eliminated by a defense network that had been dormant for millions of years. The humans were barely controlling it, operating on instinct and guesswork, and they were still winning. "Send a priority message to Imperial Command," Zethra ordered. "Tell them we have encountered an architect world." The bridge went silent. Every Vialran knew the stories. The architects were an ancient legend, a civilization that had vanished millions of years ago. They had been builders of impossible things, planet-sized constructs, star systems spanning defensive networks, weapons that could crack moons. The Empire had found ruins of architect technology on a few dead worlds, fragments that advanced Vialran science by centuries. But this was not a ruin. This was a functional architect installation, and it had a crew species living on it, oblivious to what their world truly was until the moment of activation. Dr. Chen continued analyzing the data, piecing together the truth with growing wonder and horror. Earth was approximately 4.5 billion years old. The architect technology within it dated to about 65 million years ago. Something had happened then. Something that killed the dinosaurs and reshaped the planet's surface, concealing the artificial components beneath natural geological formations. The architects had converted Earth into a warship and then left it here, dormant. While life evolved on its surface, humans had grown from primitive primates to spacefaring civilization, never knowing they lived on a weapons platform. The climate, the ecosystem, even human evolution itself, had been influenced by systems managing the planet's environment. "They wanted a crew," Dr. Morrison said suddenly. "The architects. They needed organic operators for their systems. So, they created the right conditions for intelligent life to evolve. We are not just living on an architect world. We are the result of architect engineering. We were created to operate this thing." Sarah felt sick. "We are not here by chance. We are here by design. Humanity's entire existence is because the architects needed crews for their warships." It was a disturbing thought, but the evidence supported it. The neural interfaces worked too perfectly with human brain structures. The systems responded to human thought patterns with no learning period. Humanity fit the machinery because humanity had been shaped to fit it, through millions of years of guided evolution. Around the world, more people were connecting to the systems. Not everyone could do it. Some people had no ability to interface at all. Others had limited connection, able to sense, but not control. But a small percentage, maybe 1 in 10,000, had full access. They could operate the weapons, manage the manufacturing systems, control the planetary drives. These individuals, these accidental pilots, were being identified rapidly. Military organizations contacted them, trying to coordinate their efforts. But there was no training manual for operating a planet-scale warship. No doctrine for this kind of warfare. Everything was improvisation and instinct. A climate scientist named Dr. Amira Okafor sat in her office in Lagos, suddenly understanding something that had puzzled her for years. Global warming. The steady increase in planetary temperature over the past century, she had attributed it to human industrial activity, greenhouse gases, deforestation. But now, connected to Earth's systems, she understood the truth. The planet had been warming up. Literally. Its power core, dormant for millions of years, had been gradually activating over the past century. The heat was not from human activity. It was from ancient fusion reactors deep in the Earth's core coming back online, preparing for the moment when they would be needed. Humanity had not been destroying their planet. Their planet had been waking up. And they had mistaken the symptoms of activation for environmental catastrophe. "We have been living on a sleeping giant," Amira whispered. The Vileran fleet retreated beyond the moon's orbit, regrouping. Commander Zethra composed his report to Imperial Command with shaking hands. The conquest of Sol 3 had failed catastrophically. 27 capital ships destroyed. 15 more damaged. 500 landing craft eliminated. Over 40,000 soldiers dead. All in less than 6 hours. The humans had not even fully activated their planetary systems yet. They were still learning. Still discovering capabilities. And they had already dealt the Empire a blow that would be remembered for generations. Zethra included all the sensor data in his report. The energy signatures, the weapons specifications, the evidence of architect construction. Let the Emperor and his advisors decide what to do next. This was beyond a simple military problem. This was a galactic crisis. Earth was an architect world. Functional, crude, armed, and the humans controlling it were discovering their power with terrifying speed. In orbit around Earth, the moon completed its transformation. The last of the regolith covering fell away, revealing the truth beneath. It was not a captured asteroid. It was a manufactured moon. A weapons platform with firepower exceeding most fleet carriers. And it was fully online now, bristling with weapons that tracked the retreating Vileran ships with patient precision. Across Earth, power grids overloaded as the planet's systems drew electricity from every available source. Cities went dark. Not from attack, but from their world demanding power for its awakening. Fusion reactors buried in the crust came online, supplementing and then replacing human power generation. Within hours, Earth was generating more energy than humanity had produced in its entire history. And it was still warming up. The message broadcast again, that same ancient artificial voice speaking in languages human and alien. Primary systems online. Crew integration at 37%. Defensive posture established. Threat assessment continuing. This installation remains under full combat readiness. Humanity had found Earth. They had built civilizations on it, fought wars on it, created art and science and culture. They thought it was their home. They were right, but home was not what they thought it was. Home was a battleship, and they were its crew. And the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you attacked a world that could fight back. Admiral Kreshtal, of the Vileran Empire, studied the holographic display with mounting concern. 3 full battle fleets orbited just beyond Earth's engagement range, representing the largest military concentration the Empire had assembled in 50 years. 1,200 warships, 300,000 soldiers, weapons capable of shattering continents. It should have been overwhelming force, but the data from Commander Zethra's initial contact was deeply troubling. The humans possessed architect technology. Functional architect technology. That changed everything. The Emperor himself had ordered the deployment of these fleets with explicit instructions. Take Earth intact if possible. Destroy it if necessary. The Empire could not allow an architect installation to remain in hostile hands. Status of the human forces? Kreshtal asked his tactical officer. Difficult to assess, Admiral. The planet itself is a weapons platform with capabilities we cannot fully measure. The moon is a mobile battle station. Several asteroids in the belt have revealed themselves as additional installations. Mars appears to be another component, though currently dormant. As for the humans themselves, they are still learning their systems. Our intelligence suggests only a small percentage can directly interface with the architect technology. Then we strike now, Kreshtal decided. Before they fully understand what they possess, prepare the siege cannons. If we cannot take Earth, we will crack it open and study the pieces. On Earth, chaos continued as humanity struggled with its unexpected inheritance. Military command centers worldwide tried to coordinate the individuals who could interface with the planetary systems, but it was like herding cats. These operators came from every background imaginable. Soldiers, students, engineers, artists. Some were cooperative, others were terrified. A few were drunk with their sudden power. Lieutenant Colonel David Reeves stood in the Pentagon's newly established Interface Operations Center, trying to make sense of the situation. On the screens before him, markers showed the location of confirmed operators around the world. Over 8,000 identified so far. More appeared every hour as people discovered their connection to the systems. We need organization, Reeves said to his commanding officer, General Hampton. These people need training, coordination. We cannot fight an interstellar empire with random civilians firing weapons they barely understand. Hampton nodded grimly. Agreed, but we do not have time for proper training. Intel suggests the aliens are preparing a major assault. Multiple fleets, inbound. We need every operator we can get, trained or not. A young man in his early 20s stood near the back of the operations center, feeling completely out of place. Marcus Webb had been brought here from Seattle after he accidentally activated a coastal defense system that destroyed 2 alien scout ships. He was an engineer, comfortable with circuits and code. Now military officers wanted him to operate weapons that could destroy cities. I do not know what I am doing, Marcus said honestly. I felt something in my head, touched it, and things happened. I cannot explain how. You do not need to explain, a woman's voice said. Marcus turned to see a pilot. Air Force, by her uniform. Captain Rachel Torres. None of us understand it completely, but we can feel it. Right? The connection. The systems. Responding to our thoughts. Marcus nodded. It is like having a new sense. I can feel the weapons. The power systems. Manufacturing facilities under the ocean. If I concentrate, I can access them, but actually controlling them is different. It takes focus, intent. Then we practice, Rachel said simply. The aliens gave us a few hours. We used them. Around the world, similar conversations were happening. In Beijing, Chinese military officers worked with operators who could sense systems beneath the Himalayas. In Moscow, scientists collaborated with individuals who had connected to Arctic installations. The divisions between nations were fading rapidly. When faced with extinction, old rivalries seemed suddenly petty. Jiwoo Park sat in a military facility in Seoul, surrounded by advisors trying to understand her capabilities. She was the teenager who had destroyed 2 warships. Now she was being treated like a strategic asset. Can you fire that weapon again? A general asked her in Korean. Jiwoo closed her eyes, reaching out mentally. The railgun in the East China Sea responded immediately to her attention. Yes, but it needs time to recharge. Maybe 10 minutes between shots. And I can feel other weapons, different systems. Some I understand, many I do not. Show us what you can access, another officer requested. Jiwoo opened her senses fully, letting the connection expand. Information flooded in. She could feel weapons, platforms across Asia, defense systems in the Pacific, manufacturing facilities beneath the ocean floor. Power generators in the Earth's crust. It was overwhelming, like trying to drink from a fire hose. "There is so much," she whispered. "Weapons everywhere. Some are active. Some are still sleeping. Some are damaged. And there are systems I cannot identify. Things that might not be weapons at all. Manufacturing, transportation, I cannot tell." In Colorado, retired General Arthur Hendricks stood in his backyard, mentally connected to the moon's weapons grid. He had spent 40 years in the military before retiring to a quiet life. Now, at age 67, he was back in service. The most important service of his life. The moon's systems were vast and complex. Hundreds of weapons, batteries, shield generators, power cores, sensor arrays. Hendricks could access them all, but controlling them simultaneously was impossible. He focused on the primary weapons, the massive cannons designed for engaging capital ships. "Fire control is responsive," he reported through his phone to the Pentagon liaison. "I can target individual ships or engage multiple targets. But the system wants parameters. Rules of engagement. It keeps asking me questions I do not have answers for." The liaison's voice came back. "What kind of questions?" "Threat assessment protocols. Acceptable collateral damage thresholds. Priority targeting criteria. The system is waiting for command-level decisions before it will operate at full capacity. I think the architects designed it to require conscious oversight. Humans have to make the hard choices. The machines just execute them." It was a sobering thought. The weapons were incredible, but they were not autonomous. They needed human judgment, human morality. Humanity had not just inherited a warship, they had inherited the responsibility of deciding when and how to use it. Dr. Sarah Chen had been relocated to a bunker beneath NORAD, working with a team of scientists trying to understand Earth's structure. The geological data was staggering. Every continent contained architect technology. The entire planetary crust was interwoven with machinery. "It is beautiful," Sarah said, studying the scans. "In a terrifying way. The integration of artificial and natural systems is seamless. The architects did not just build weapons into Earth, they made the weapons part of Earth. The planet's tectonic activity is managed by the systems. The magnetic field is generated by artificial cores. Even the atmosphere is regulated by environmental processors. Earth as we know it exists because the architects made it this way." A young geophysicist named Dr. Yuki Tanaka pointed to a specific scan. "Look at this. The Pacific Ocean floor. There are structures down there larger than cities. Manufacturing complexes. They are starting to activate. Producing something. The output is being transported through underwater channels." "Producing what?" Sarah asked. "Drones, I think. Automated defenders. The system is building its own fleet." Across Earth's oceans, ancient factories came online. They drew resources from the ocean floor, processed minerals through technologies humanity barely understood, and produced machines of war. Small attack drones, space fighters, automated weapon platforms. The production rate was extraordinary. One factory alone was outputting 1,000 units per hour. Humanity was not fighting alone. Earth itself was mobilizing, manufacturing the tools for its own defense. Admiral Kreshtal received reports of the manufacturing activity with growing alarm. "They are building forces. The planet is literally constructing a military fleet. If we do not strike now, they will become unbeatable." "Siege cannons ready, Admiral," his weapons officer reported. "Targeting the planet's major power nodes. If we destroy the primary reactors, the defense systems should fail." Kreshtal gave the order. Fire. 6 massive beams of coherent energy lanced toward Earth from the Vilran fleet. Each beam carried enough power to vaporize a mountain. They targeted locations where sensor data showed the strongest energy signatures. Beijing, Moscow, the Sahara, the Amazon, Antarctica, the Pacific. The beams struck Earth's atmosphere and stopped. Simply stopped, as if hitting an invisible wall. The atmosphere itself was the first layer of defense, a shield of incredible sophistication. The energy from the siege cannons was absorbed, distributed, and dissipated harmlessly across the global grid. "Impossible," Kreshtal shouted. "Those are siege-grade weapons. They should penetrate any shield." "The planetary defense is unlike anything in our database," his science officer reported. "It is not a traditional energy shield. It is manipulating the atmosphere itself, using it as a medium to redistribute incoming energy. Our weapons are not penetrating. They are being spread across the entire planetary surface until the energy density is negligible." On Earth, operators felt the attack through their neural links. The siege cannons had been powerful, but the planetary shields had handled them easily. However, the shield system demanded more power. More reactors came online. More systems activated. Earth was escalating its defensive posture. Marcus Webb, standing in the Pentagon Operations Center, suddenly gasped. New information flooded into his mind. "I have access to something new. Something big. It is calling itself a planetary drive. I think Earth can move." Every officer in the room turned to stare at him. General Hampton spoke carefully. "What do you mean? Move. Move. Like a ship. The planet has engines. Massive engines. They are buried deep, aligned with the planet's rotation. If we activate them, Earth can leave orbit. It can maneuver." Marcus looked up, his eyes wide with realization. "We are not just on a warship. We are on a mobile warship." The implication was staggering. Earth was not bound to its orbit. It could travel. It could position itself strategically. It was not a stationary target. It was a vessel. Rachel Torres, the Air Force captain, spoke up. "If Earth can move, what about the other planets? Mars showed signs of activation. Are they warships too?" Sarah Chen, monitoring from NORAD, jumped in on the communication line. "Mars is definitely artificial. So are several of the larger asteroids. Jupiter's moons are showing unusual readings too. I think this entire solar system is an architect installation. Earth might be the flagship, but it is not alone. There is a whole fleet here." Arling. The humans were beginning to understand the scope of what they had inherited. Not just a planet. An entire star system converted into a military installation. The architects had not built one warship. They had built a fleet anchored around Sol. In Sol, Jiwoo experimented with her connection. Reaching deeper into the systems, she found something unexpected. A database. Historical records. The information was in a format her mind could barely process, but fragments came through. Images. Concepts. Warnings. The architects were fighting something, she said aloud to the military advisors around her. Something terrible. I can sense it in the records. They built these installations as a defense against a threat. A big threat. I cannot understand all of it, but I feel the fear in the data. The architects were afraid. The big three. What could frighten a civilization capable of converting planets into warships? What threat required such extreme measures? The questions hung in the air, unanswered. Admiral Kreshtal made his decision. The siege cannons had failed. Conventional weapons were ineffective. He had one option left. Prepare the planet crackers. Target Earth's core. If we cannot disable it, we will destroy it. Planet crackers were the Empire's ultimate weapon. Missiles that burrowed through a planet's crust and detonated in the mantle, triggering catastrophic geological instability. They had been used to destroy 3 rebellious worlds in the Empire's history. Never had they been used against an architect installation. Kreshtal did not know if they would work, but he was out of options. Fire planet crackers. Authorization code Kreshtal Omega 7. 6 missiles, each the size of a building, launched from the fleet. They were designed to be unstoppable. Heavy armor, evasive programming. They would reach Earth's surface and burrow down before detonation. Nothing could intercept them all. On Earth, every operator felt the threat simultaneously. The missiles were different from other weapons. They were designed for planetary destruction. If they detonated successfully, Earth would die, and 8 billion humans would die with it. Marcus felt the planetary systems surge with his panic. We need to stop those missiles. All of them. How do we stop them? General Hendricks, connected to the moon's weapons, acted first. He engaged the missiles with the moon's point defense systems. 2 missiles destroyed. But 4 remained. Jiwoo fired her railgun. 1 missile eliminated. 3 left. Rachel Torres, discovering she could control atmospheric drones, launched hundreds of them. They swarmed the remaining missiles, kamikaze attacks from automated fighters. 1 more missile destroyed, 2 left. The last 2 missiles entered Earth's atmosphere, their armor glowing white-hot. They were too close, too fast. Conventional weapons could not stop them in time. Marcus made a desperate decision. He activated the planetary drive, not to move Earth, just one engine. A focused pulse of thrust directed upward, through the atmosphere. The exhaust from an engine designed to push an entire planet. The blast was incomprehensible. A column of superheated plasma erupted from the Pacific Ocean, reaching into space like the finger of an angry god. The 2 missiles flew directly into it and vaporized instantly. The ocean around the engine port boiled. Steam clouds rose for miles. But Earth survived. We did it, Marcus whispered, exhausted. We stopped them. But Admiral Kreshtal was already ordering another salvo, and another fleet had just appeared at the system's edge. The Empire was committing everything to this battle. Earth had survived the first exchange, but the real war was only beginning, and humanity was learning a harsh lesson. Owning the most powerful warship in the galaxy meant nothing if you did not know how to fight with it. The emergency session of the United Nations had never seen anything like this. Representatives from every nation sat together, old enemies side by side, watching the holographic display showing the Vileron fleet positions. 3 more battle groups had arrived. The alien armada now numbered over 1,800 warships. They surrounded the solar system like a closing fist. We are outnumbered, the Russian ambassador said quietly. Even with Earth's weapons, we face impossible odds. The American representative shook her head. Numbers do not matter if we cannot coordinate. We have 8,000 operators worldwide, each controlling different systems. We are fighting as individuals, not as a unit. We need organization. Unity. Unity. The Chinese ambassador repeated. How do we achieve that when we barely understand the weapons we are using? An unexpected voice spoke up. Dr. Sarah Chen, the geophysicist, had been granted special access to address the assembly. The neural interface works better when operators cooperate. We have been testing it. When multiple operators focus on the same system together, their connection strengthens. The architect technology responds to collective human consciousness. It is designed for crews working in coordination. The Secretary General leaned forward. You are saying the system works best when we work together? Exactly. The architects built this as a warship, and warships need crews, not individual heroes. Coordinated teams. When operators combine their efforts, they can access capabilities none of them could reach alone. It was a revelation that changed everything. Earth's defenders needed to stop fighting as scattered individuals and start operating as a unified crew. But that required something humanity had struggled with throughout its history: cooperation on a global scale. We need a command structure, a military advisor suggested. Operators assigned to specific systems. Clear chains of command. Coordinated tactics. We need more than that, said Dr. Amira Okafor, the climate scientist who understood the planetary power systems. We need volunteers willing to enter deep neural integration. The system has chambers, facilities designed for maximum connection. Operators who enter them can access far greater capabilities, but at significant physical cost. The implications were sobering. Deep integration meant risking lives to achieve greater power. It meant asking people to become part of the machine, potentially burning out their nervous systems for the sake of planetary defense. Where are these chambers? The Secretary General asked. Amira pulled up a map. All over the world, under the pyramids of Giza, beneath Stonehenge, at Angkor Wat in Cambodia, under Machu Picchu, Göbekli Tepe, Easter Island, every ancient site that humanity considered sacred or mysterious. They were all built on top of architect integration chambers. Our ancestors sensed something powerful in those locations. They were right. Marcus Webb sat in the Pentagon Operations Center, listening to the global conference through his headset. The idea of deep integration terrified him. But the alternative was worse. If Earth fell, humanity ended. It was that simple. I will do it, he said quietly. I will volunteer for deep integration. General Hampton looked at him seriously. You understand the risks? The medical teams cannot guarantee your safety. We do not fully understand what this will do to your body. I understand. But I can feel the planetary drive systems. They respond to me better than to anyone else. If I enter deep integration, maybe I can actually move Earth. Position us strategically. We need every advantage. Similar conversations happened around the world. Jiwoo in Seoul volunteered for the chamber beneath the Korean demilitarized zone, a site that had been discovered only days ago. General Hendricks, despite his age, insisted on entering the chamber beneath Cheyenne Mountain, seeking deeper connection to the moon's systems. Rachel Torres requested assignment to a chamber in New Mexico, where she had grown up near ancient Puebloan ruins. Hundreds volunteered. Thousands. Young and old, military and civilian. From every nation and culture, they would become Earth's pilots, linking their nervous systems directly to a planet-scale warship. Many would not survive the process, but they went willingly, understanding what was at stake. The integration chambers were incredible. Ancient technology that had waited millions of years for the right crew species. Marcus descended into the chamber beneath the Great Pyramid, accompanied by medical staff and military observers. The chamber was vast. Walls covered in geometric patterns that glowed with soft blue light. At the center stood a chair, or perhaps a throne, designed for a human body with unsettling precision. The architects knew what we would look like, Marcus said, staring at the chair. They designed this for humans specifically. How is that possible? Dr. Chen, monitoring remotely, offered her theory. They did not predict what we would look like. They engineered it. They shaped human evolution over millions of years to produce operators compatible with their systems. We fit because we were made to fit. It was a disturbing thought, but Marcus had no time to dwell on it. He sat in the chair. Immediately, connections emerged from the armrests and headrest, fine tendrils that interfaced with his nervous system. There was no pain, just an overwhelming sensation of expansion. His consciousness spread outward, merging with the planetary drive systems. Suddenly, he was not just Marcus anymore. He was part of Earth itself. He could feel the planet's rotation, its orbit around the sun, the gravitational interactions with the moon and other planets, and he could change those things. The planetary drives were his to command, responding to thought as naturally as moving his own limbs. Integration successful, a medical monitor reported. Neural activity is stable. Subject is maintaining consciousness. Marcus could barely hear them. His awareness was too vast. He could sense the Vilran fleet positioning for another attack. He could feel the strain on Earth's shield systems. And he knew with absolute certainty, what needed to be done. Earth needs to move, he said, his voice distant. The fleet is concentrating fire on one hemisphere. If we rotate faster, distribute the incoming energy across more surface area. I can do it. He engaged the planetary drives, not to move Earth from orbit, but to alter its rotation. The planet's spin increased slightly, just enough to ensure no single location bore the brunt of sustained bombardment. It was such a small change that humans on the surface barely noticed. But strategically, it was significant. In Seoul, Ji-woo entered her integration chamber and connected to the weapons grid. Her consciousness exploded outward, linking with every weapons platform across Asia and the Pacific. Hundreds of railguns, thousands of missile batteries, drone swarms numbering in the millions. They all answered to her now. A symphony of destruction awaiting her command. But the integration came with a cost. Pain shot through her nervous system. The connection was burning her out, demanding more than her body could safely give. She could feel her health degrading, cells damaged by the neural load. The doctors had warned her this would happen. Deep integration destroyed the human body eventually. It was simply too much for organic tissue to handle. She had days, maybe a week, if she was lucky. But in that time, she would be one of Earth's most powerful defenders. She accepted the trade. General Hendricks achieved integration in the Cheyenne Mountain Chamber and immediately understood the moon's full capabilities. It was not just a weapons platform, it was a mobile command center, designed to coordinate planetary defense across entire star systems. With him guiding it, the moon became the nerve center of Earth's military operations. All operators, this is command, Hendricks broadcast through the neural network. I am establishing firing priorities and target assignments. Stand by for coordinated operations. For the first time, Earth's defenders were not fighting as individuals. They were operating as a crew, with Hendricks serving as the strategic coordinator. His deep integration allowed him to perceive the entire battle space and direct forces with precision. Rachel Torres, integrated with atmospheric defense systems, coordinated the drone swarms. Dr. Okafor managed power distribution, ensuring energy flowed to the systems that needed it most. Other operators managed shields, targeting, manufacturing, and logistics. They were becoming a crew in the truest sense. Admiral Kreshtal watched this coordination emerge with growing desperation. They are learning, he said to his officers. Every hour they become more effective. We must break their defense now, before they achieve full operational capability. The extinction fleet has arrived, his tactical officer reported. 98 capital ships, armed with weapons designed to sterilize rebellious worlds. The extinction fleet was the Empire's ultimate response to worlds that refused submission. It had destroyed 3 civilizations in the Empire's history. Each time, the targeted world had been reduced to molten slag, all life eradicated. The fleet carried weapons that could ignite atmospheres, boil oceans, and crack planetary crusts. Deploy the extinction fleet, Kreshtal ordered. This ends now. On Earth, every operator felt the new threat arrive. The extinction fleet's weapons were unlike anything they had faced. These were not precision instruments. They were tools of genocide, designed for total destruction. Hendricks assessed the situation coldly. We cannot defend against that firepower indefinitely. We need to take the offensive. Strike at their fleet directly. How? Ji-woo asked through the neural network. We are powerful, but we are still one planet, against hundreds of warships. Mars, Marcus said suddenly. I can feel it. Mars is not just an installation. It is a frigate, a support vessel. If we wake it up, Dr. Chen confirmed from her position. Mars is showing increasing activity, the same activation patterns we saw with Earth. If an operator achieves integration there, we might be able to bring it online. We do not have anyone on Mars, General Hampton pointed out. We can send someone, Rachel suggested. Earth's manufacturing systems have been producing ships, small ones, but functional. We have spacecraft now. We can get someone to Mars. It was a desperate plan. Send an operator to Mars, achieve integration, wake up a planet-sized warship that had been dormant for millions of years. The risks were enormous, but the alternative was extinction. "I will go," a voice said over the network. It was a Russian cosmonaut, Commander Dmitry Volkov, stationed on the International Space Station when the invasion began. "I am already in space. Get me a ship, and I will reach Mars." The decision was made quickly. One of Earth's newly manufactured ships was dispatched to collect Volkov. It was a small craft, barely large enough for one person, but it was fast. It could reach Mars in hours using technology humanity had never possessed before. While Volkov began his journey, the extinction fleet opened fire. The attack was devastating. Coherent energy beams designed to ignite atmospheres struck Earth's shields. The planetary defense held, but barely. Power systems strained, shield generators overloaded. The operators felt Earth's pain through their neural links. "Redistribute shield coverage," Hendricks commanded. "Focus on the northern hemisphere. Let some energy through on the southern oceans. We can absorb impacts on water." It was a calculated risk. Allowing some weapons through meant accepting damage. But trying to block everything would overload the shields completely. Earth had to endure some hits to survive. The extinction fleet's beams penetrated the shields in the South Pacific. The ocean boiled instantly. Billions of tons of water flash vaporized into steam. Tsunamis radiated outward from the impact zones. Coastal cities evacuated in panic. But Earth itself survived. Ji-woo coordinated the counterattack. With her deep integration, she controlled weapons across the Pacific region, like extensions of her own body. Railguns fired in perfect synchronization. Missile swarms launched in waves. Drone fighters engaged the extinction fleet's smaller craft. 3 capital ships of the extinction fleet were destroyed in the first minute of her assault. 5 more in the second minute. The Violran forces had never faced such precise, overwhelming counterfire. One human operator, integrated with the planetary systems, was proving more effective than their entire tactical division. But the cost was terrible. Ji-woo screamed as her nervous system burned. Medical monitors showed catastrophic damage. Her body was failing under the neural load. "Break integration," her medical team shouted. "You are killing yourself." "Not yet," Ji-woo gasped. "Not until Mars wakes up. Not until we have support." She held on through sheer willpower, directing Earth's fury at the extinction fleet even as her body degraded. She was 17 years old, and she was dying to save her world. Commander Volkov reached Mars in record time. The red planet had been quietly activating during Earth's battle, its own architect systems coming online, in sympathy with its sister world. Volkov landed near Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, now revealed to be the primary integration chamber for the Mars installation. He descended into the Martian facility and found a chamber identical to Earth's. He sat in the chair without hesitation. The connection was instantaneous and overwhelming. Mars was smaller than Earth, but no less powerful. It was designed as a support vessel, a weapons frigate that could maneuver quickly and provide covering fire for the larger planetary warships. "Integration complete," Volkov reported through the solar system. "Wide neural network. Mars is online, preparing to join the battle." For the first time in millions of years, Mars moved under its own power. The red planet broke orbit, accelerating toward Earth's position with impossible speed. It was not as heavily armed as Earth, but it was fast, maneuverable, and absolutely terrifying to witness. A planet moving like a starship, crossing the distance between orbital paths in minutes rather than months. The Veilran fleet scattered in panic as Mars approached, a second world-scale warship entering the battle. Admiral Kreshtal watched his strategic situation collapse. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships, Retreat beyond the system's gravity well. Prepare for emergency jump. But Earth and Mars were not letting them go easily. The two planets, coordinated through their integrated crews, unleashed a devastating bombardment. Weapons that had been charging during the battle released simultaneously. The extinction fleet was caught in a crossfire between two planet ships. 98 capital ships entered the battle. 43 survived to retreat. The rest were destroyed, vaporized, or left crippled and drifting. The greatest fleet the Vialran Empire had ever assembled was shattered in less than an hour. Jiwoo finally released her integration, collapsing unconscious in her chair. Medical teams rushed to stabilize her. She had held on long enough to see victory, but her body was destroyed. She would not survive more than a few days. She had given everything for Earth. Similar casualties occurred across the planet. Of the thousands who achieved deep integration, hundreds died from neural burnout. Thousands more were permanently injured. The medical costs of operating a world-scale warship were devastating, but Earth had survived. Mars was awake, and the Vialran Empire was retreating in defeat, leaving behind wreckage and shattered pride. Humanity had won its first major battle, but they all knew this was not the end. The Empire would return, and next time, they would bring more than conventional fleets. They would bring everything they had. Earth needed to prepare, and humanity needed to decide what kind of civilization they would become now that they knew their true nature. They were not just inhabitants of a planet. They were the crew of a warship, and the galaxy was watching to see what they would do next. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Sol, as humanity was already calling it. The wreckage of Vialran warships still orbited Earth like a graveyard. Some pieces had been captured and were being studied. Others had been destroyed or had drifted into the sun. The debris field served as a constant reminder of what humanity had accomplished and what they had lost. Jiwoo Park died 4 days after the battle. She never regained consciousness after her final integration session. Her funeral in Seoul was attended by thousands, and billions more watched worldwide. She was 17 years old and had destroyed more enemy warships than most military forces could claim. Statues were being planned. Schools would be named after her. But for now, her family simply mourned their daughter, who had given everything to save the world. She was not alone. Over 2,000 deep integration operators had died from neural burnout. Thousands more were permanently disabled, their nervous systems too damaged to ever fully recover. The cost of operating architect technology was measured in human lives, and humanity was still learning that terrible arithmetic. General Arthur Hendricks stood on the observation deck of the moon, looking down at Earth. The moon had become humanity's first permanent off-world military installation, housing 5,000 personnel who helped coordinate planetary defense. Hendricks himself could no longer return to Earth. His deep integration was permanent. He was neurally bonded to the moon's systems. If he tried to leave, the connection would kill him. The moon was his body now, and he would serve here until he died. Status report, he requested through the neural network. Reports flooded in from operators around the solar system. Earth was still recovering from the battle. Shield generators had been repaired. Damaged weapons platforms were being rebuilt by the manufacturing facilities. The wounded planet was healing itself with architect technology, though some scars would remain. Mars orbited nearby, close enough to provide mutual support with Earth. Commander Dmitry Volkov had become Mars's permanent pilot, as deeply integrated as Hendricks. The two of them coordinated defensive strategy through neural communication that happened at the speed of thought. Movement in the Kuiper Belt, Volkov reported. Sensors are detecting something. Not Vialran signatures. Something else. Hendricks focused the moon's sensors. Volkov was right. Objects were moving in the outer system. Not ships. Not natural asteroids. Something in between. Jupiter's moons are responding. I think they are waking up. The revelation sent shockwaves through the solar system. Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, Io. The Galilean moons were revealing themselves as additional architect installations, smaller than Earth or Mars, but still massive. And they were activating without human intervention, responding to the recent battle like dormant guardians sensing threat. "We need operators there," Hendrik said. "If Jupiter's moons are functional installations, we need crews for them." A new wave of volunteers was already being prepared. Humanity's understanding of the architect network was expanding rapidly. The entire solar system was an installation. Earth was the flagship. Mars was the support frigate. The moon was command and control. Jupiter's moons appeared to be weapons, platforms, and manufacturing centers. Even some asteroids were showing signs of architect construction. Humanity had not inherited one warship. They had inherited a fleet anchored to a star. On Earth, the political situation was evolving as rapidly as the military one. The old system of nation-states was dissolving, not through conquest or revolution, but through simple necessity. Operating a planet-scale warship required global coordination. Borders had become meaningless when every human was potentially part of Earth's crew. The United Nations had transformed into something new, a true planetary government focused on coordination and resource allocation. It was far from perfect. Arguments still erupted over resource distribution, operator selection, and strategic priorities. But the fundamental shift had occurred. Humanity was thinking of itself as one species, one crew, facing challenges together. Dr. Sarah Chen led the scientific efforts to understand the architect technology. Her team had made remarkable discoveries. The architects had not just built weapons, they had built entire civilizations into their installations. There were living spaces discovered beneath every continent, cities designed for crews numbering in the hundreds of millions. Humanity could, theoretically, move their entire population underground into architect-designed habitats, while leaving the surface for weapons and manufacturing. The architects expected massive crews, Sarah explained in a presentation to the new Planetary Council. Earth alone was designed to support 500 million operators and 5 billion support personnel. Mars could hold 50 million. The Jupiter moons were meant for smaller, specialized crews. This was not just military technology. This was civilization-scale engineering. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not supposed to be confined to Earth's surface. They were meant to spread throughout the architect facilities, turning the entire solar system into a lived-in, operated network. It would take generations to fully populate the system, but the infrastructure was already there, waiting. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts were underway. The moon had been converted into a mobile diplomatic vessel. Though it rarely moved from Earth orbit, it had traveled once, to the edge of the solar system, carrying human envoys to meet representatives from other galactic civilizations. The first contact with the broader galactic community was tense. Ambassador Maria Santos led the human delegation, accompanied by military advisors and scientists. They met representatives from the Galactic Council, a loose alliance of civilizations that maintained trade and communication across explored space. The council chambers were aboard a massive space station, neutral territory maintained by dozens of species. When the human delegation arrived on the moon, which dwarfed the space station completely, the visual impact was profound. The other species had heard reports about Earth. Seeing the humans arrive in a weaponized moon made those reports terrifyingly real. Ambassador Santos spoke carefully. Humanity wishes to establish peaceful relations with the galactic community. We did not choose to become operators of architect technology, but we will not apologize for defending ourselves against invasion. The council representatives included species from across the galaxy. Some were humanoid. Others were entirely alien. All of them looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and respect. A representative from the Kethian Assembly, a civilization nearly as old as the Vileran Empire, spoke first. The architects were the ancient enemy of all civilizations. They built their planet ships to fight a war that ended millions of years ago. Their technology is the most dangerous in the known galaxy, and you control an entire system of it. We are still learning to control it, Santos replied honestly. Many of our people have died operating systems they barely understood. We are not the architects. We are humans, who happen to evolve on an architect installation. That is what concerns us, a different representative said, from a species Santos did not recognize. The architects vanished mysteriously. Their planet ships went dormant. No one knows why. No one knows if they are truly gone, or merely waiting. And now humans have awakened one of their installations. You may have triggered something far more dangerous than the Vileran invasion. It was a chilling thought. What if the architects were not extinct? What if Earth's activation had sent some kind of signal? What if something was coming in response? Santos had no answers. But she offered what she could. Humanity will share what we learn about the architect technology. We will not threaten peaceful civilizations. We ask only for the same courtesy. Leave us in peace, and we will coexist peacefully with the galaxy. And if the Vileran Empire attacks again? The Kethian representative asked. Then we will defend ourselves, Santos said simply. We have that right. The council could not argue with that. But the political situation was complex. The Vileran Empire, though defeated, was still the largest single military power in the region. They had withdrawn, but not surrendered. Intelligence suggested they were rebuilding, preparing for another attempt. The empire itself was splitting over the question of Earth. Hardliners demanded revenge and total conquest. Pragmatists argued for negotiation and peace. The emperor was old, and his succession was uncertain. If he died, civil war might erupt between the factions. The empire is wounded, Hendricks reported to the Planetary Council after analyzing intelligence reports. But wounded animals are dangerous. They might attack recklessly, or they might withdraw permanently. We cannot predict their next move. Then we must be ready for anything, the council decided. Continue training operators. Activate more installations. If the Empire returns, we will be stronger than before. The training programs had evolved significantly. Humanity now understood that deep integration was not necessary for every operator. Most could function effectively with standard neural interface, maintaining their health while still contributing to planetary defense. Deep integration was reserved for critical systems and emergency situations. New training facilities were established at every ancient site. The pyramids, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Angkor Wat, places that had been tourist destinations became military academies, training humanity's next generation of planet ship operators. Children as young as 10 showed aptitude for the neural interface. They were not sent into combat, but they learned the basics, preparing for a future where operating architect systems might be as common as driving a car. Commander Marcus Webb recovered from his integration experience. Unlike Hendricks, his connection was not permanent. He could disconnect from the planetary drives, though it left him disoriented for days afterward. He continued serving as Earth's primary helmsman, the person who could move the planet when necessary. It gets easier, he told new operator trainees. The first time, it feels like you are drowning in information. Your mind is not built to process planetary scale awareness, but with practice, you learn to filter. Focus on what matters. Trust the systems to handle the details. The trainees listened intently. They were the future. Some would operate weapons. Others would manage manufacturing or power systems. A few might achieve deep integration and become permanent crew for Mars or Jupiter's moons. All of them understood the stakes. Dr. Amira Okafor had made a disturbing discovery in the architect databases. The historical records Ji Wu had partially accessed before her death were now being translated more completely. The architects had built their planet ships to fight something specific, something that had threatened their entire civilization. They called it the Devourers, Amira explained to the council. From what I can translate, they were a species or force that consumed worlds, not conquering them, literally eating them, converting planetary mass into their own infrastructure. The architects built planet ships as a response, worlds that could fight back, worlds that could move away from danger. What happened to the Devourers? Someone asked. The records are unclear. Either the architects won and the Devourers were destroyed, or the war ended in stalemate and both sides withdrew. But here is the concerning part. The activation protocols for architect installations include a specific warning. If Earth detects Devourer signatures, all systems go to maximum combat readiness automatically. Are we detecting those signatures? Santos asked. Not yet. But the system is watching. If the Devourers still exist somewhere in the galaxy, Earth will know if they approach. It was yet another threat to worry about. But humanity was learning to live with existential danger. They had already faced annihilation and survived. If something worse was out there, they would face it too. 6 months after first contact with the Vylran Empire, Earth began its first exploratory mission beyond the solar system. A small fleet of human-designed ships, built using architect manufacturing technology, would travel to nearby star systems, not to conquer or threaten, to explore, to make contact with other civilizations, to show the galaxy that humanity was more than just the crew of a warship. The fleet was diverse, crewed by volunteers from every nation. They carried messages of peace and scientific cooperation, but they also carried weapons, because the galaxy had proven itself dangerous. They were explorers and diplomats, but they were also warriors if necessary. Ambassador Santos addressed the fleet before their departure. You represent humanity to the galaxy. Show them who we are. Show them we are capable of more than just war. We did not choose to become what we are, but we can choose what we do with it. The fleet launched, jumping to faster-than-light travel using technology that humans had only possessed for months. They disappeared into the cosmic night, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams to the stars. On Earth, life continued. Cities were being rebuilt. The scars of battle were healing. But everything had changed. Humanity knew its true nature now. They were not just another species trying to survive on one small world. They were the inheritors of technology that could reshape solar systems. They were the crew of Earth, a planet-scale warship left behind by an ancient civilization. The question now was what humanity would become. Would they be conquerors, like the Vylran Empire? Would they be isolationists, hiding behind their weapons? Or would they be something new, a species powerful enough to defend themselves but wise enough to seek peace? General Hendricks watched Earth from the moon's observation deck, thinking about that question. He was 67 years old, and would die on this moon. His neural system too integrated to ever separate. But he did not regret his choice. He had given his life to protect humanity's future. Now it was up to the next generation to decide what that future would be. Sir, an operator reported, we are detecting unusual energy signatures in deep space. Multiple sources. Moving toward our system. Hendricks felt a chill. Identification? Unknown. Not Vylran. Not any species in our database. The energy patterns are strange, organic, like they are alive. Hendricks accessed the sensor data directly through his neural link. The signatures were indeed unusual, massive, ancient, and they were approaching from the direction of the galactic core, where the architects had supposedly fought their ancient war. Send a priority alert to Earth and Mars, Hendricks ordered. Unknown contacts approaching, possibly hostile. Prepare defensive measures. Across the solar system, architect installations began activating more fully. Systems that had remained dormant even during the Vylran battle came online. Earth's deepest weapons, held in reserve, prepared to deploy. Mars adjusted its orbit, positioning for combat. Jupiter's moons powered up their manufacturing facilities, beginning to produce ships at rates humanity had not yet attempted. The architect network was recognizing a specific threat, and it was responding with the full power of its design. Humanity gathered on their planet ship, watching the darkness of space with newly opened eyes. They had faced one empire and survived. Now, something else was coming, something that had fought the architects themselves millions of years ago. Whatever happened next, humanity would face it, as they had learned to face all challenges. Together, as one species, as the crew of Earth. The blue planet turned in space, surrounded by its fleet of moons and sister planets. A network of world ships waiting for whatever came from the deep. Weapons that could crack continents stood ready. Shields that could deflect starfire were charged. Millions of operators worldwide maintained their neural links, ready to defend their home. Humanity had not asked to become warriors on a galactic scale. They had not chosen to inherit weapons that could reshape solar systems. But the galaxy had found them, had attacked them, and had learned a crucial lesson. Earth was not a prize to be taken. It was a warship to be feared. And its crew, once divided and primitive, had become something the galaxy had not seen in millions of years. They had become the rightful heirs of the architects, and the galaxy would never be the same.
The emergency alarm broke the usual calm of Station Watch Point 7. The sound made every worker stop what they were doing. Tixala, a young creche analyst, stared at her display screen with all four of her compound eyes wide open. Her antenna trembled as she tried to understand what she was seeing. "Senior Monitor Velthon," she called out, her voice shaking. "I have detected something. A distress signal from the Valora system." Velthon moved quickly across the station floor. His crystalline body reflected the red emergency lights that now filled the room. He was a luminar, a being made of living crystal that could process information faster than most organic minds. But even he felt something close to fear when he saw Tixala's screen. The signal was clear, too clear. It carried the universal code for immediate danger. Total extinction event. All life threatened. Please respond. How long do they have? Velthon asked. Tixala worked her controls with nervous movements. According to the data patterns, maybe 6 hours, perhaps 7 if they are lucky. She looked up at her superior. "It is the Devourex, sir." "A full swarm, maybe 3 or 4 billion individual ships." Velthon felt his internal structure vibrate with stress. The Devourex were a nightmare that kept council species awake. They were a hive mind species that consumed everything in their path. Planets, stations, ships, people. Everything became food for the endless swarm. They had destroyed 12 civilizations in the past 200 years. "Contact the council immediately," Velthon ordered, "and calculate how long it would take our nearest fleet to reach Valora space." The answer came back within minutes, and it was not good. The council's third defense fleet was 3 cycles away. Even if they started moving right now, they would arrive long after the Valora were dead and eaten. The Devourex would be gone, moving to their next target, leaving only empty worlds behind. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaotic. Representatives from 20 different species argued over channels of communication. Some wanted to send the fleet anyway, to hunt the Devourex after they left Valora space. Others insisted that protecting their own borders was more important. A few suggested they could do nothing at all. Ambassador Thelanara, a tall Zentari with skin like flowing water, tried to keep order. "The Valora people are our allies. They have been members of this council for 400 years. We cannot simply abandon them. What choice do we have?" demanded Council Member Rax, his scales turning dark blue with frustration. "Our fleets are positioned to protect the core worlds. If we move them now, we leave other systems exposed. Then the Valora die," said another voice. 10 billion innocent beings gone because we were too slow and too scared. The arguing continued for another hour. Meanwhile, in the Valora system, cities burned under the Devourex assault. Tixala sat at her station, feeling helpless. She had been monitoring council communications, hoping to hear that help was coming. Instead, she heard only debate and fear. Her people, the creche, valued logic above emotion, but watching an entire civilization face destruction while politicians talked made her feel something that logic could not explain. She looked at her secondary screen. It showed all military assets within range of the Valora system. The council fleets were too far away. But there was one other option. One possibility that nobody had mentioned because it seemed too dangerous to consider. "Senior Monitor," Tixala said quietly. There is another military force within range. Velthon turned to her. What are you talking about? I checked all council assets myself. Not council assets, Tixala replied. Human assets. Their third expeditionary fleet is conducting training exercises at the edge of Sector 7. They are only 2 hours away from Valora space. The entire station fell silent. Every being present understood what she was suggesting, and every being present knew why it was a terrible idea. The humans were new to the galactic community. They had only developed faster than light travel 80 years ago. They came from a planet called Earth, which was classified as a Class 12 death world. That meant it was one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy where intelligent life had evolved. High gravity, aggressive predators, extreme weather, disease, poison. The list went on and on. Most species that evolved on such worlds never developed space travel because they destroyed themselves first. Humans had not only survived their world, they had thrived on it, and that made them dangerous. The Galactic Council had placed humans under probationary status. They were allowed limited access to Council space and technology. They could trade in certain sectors, but they were watched carefully. Their military was considered primitive but worryingly aggressive. Council security reports called humans dangerously unpredictable and insufficiently civilized. Absolutely not, Velthon said firmly. The humans are not authorized for Council military operations. They have no training in joint operations. They do not understand our rules of engagement, and frankly, they scare most Council species. They also have warships within range of the Valora system, Tixala replied. She surprised herself with how strong her voice sounded. Ships that could arrive in time, maybe. You want us to ask the Death Worlders for help? Velthon's crystal body flashed with colors that showed his emotional state. Red for anger, blue for fear. Do you have any idea what they might do? Humans have proven themselves capable of extreme violence. We have reports of their training exercises. They practice tactics that would kill any normal crew. They accelerate their ships to speeds that should turn their bodies to liquid. They volunteer for missions with casualty rates above 70%. They are insane. They are also our only option, Tixala said. She brought up the tactical display. Look at this, sir. The Devourex will finish consuming the first Valora colony world in 3 hours. The second world will fall in 5 hours. The main homeworld, where 8 billion Valora live, will be attacked in 6 hours. Our fleet cannot arrive in time. Only the humans can. Velthon stared at the display. He ran probability calculations through his crystalline mind. Every scenario ended the same way. Without intervention, the Valora would die. All of them. Their art, their culture, their history. Gone. Consumed by the swarm. Contact Ambassador Thelnara, he finally said. Tell her we have a possible solution. And may the stars have mercy on us all. The message reached Earth's third expeditionary fleet 40 minutes later. Admiral Sarah Chen was in her ready room aboard the UES Indomitable when the communication arrived. She read it twice, then called for her senior staff. Admiral Chen was 50 years old with gray hair and eyes that had seen combat on 3 different worlds. She had joined Earth's Navy 30 years ago, back when humanity's ships could barely reach Mars. Now she commanded 20 warships on the frontier of known space. Her executive officer, Commander James Park, arrived first. He looked at the message on the display, and his expression did not change. They want us to respond to a Devourex attack. Do we even know what the Devourex are? Computer has files on them, Chen replied. Hive mind, bioships. They eat everything organic and convert it to more ships. Basically space locusts with faster than light travel. She pulled up tactical data. And there are billions of them currently attacking a species called the Valora. Captain Elizabeth Okafor, commanding officer of the destroyer wing, entered the room. How far away? 2 hours at maximum speed, Chen answered. Which means we could actually get there in time to help, unlike the Council's fleets. What are our orders from Earth Command? Asked Commander Park. Admiral Chen smiled, but there was no humor in it. Earth Command is 12 hours away by communication lag. By the time we get orders, the Valora will be dead. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. So I am making the decision myself. We are going in. Admiral, Commander Park said carefully, we will be outnumbered by thousands to one, maybe worse. This could be a suicide mission. Probably will be, Chen agreed. She turned to face her officers. But I did not join the Navy to watch civilizations die while I had the power to help. The Valora sent a distress signal. We received it. That means we respond. That is what we do. Captain Okafor nodded. My destroyers are ready, Admiral. Good. Chen activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is Admiral Chen. We have received a distress signal from a species called the Valora. They are under attack by a hostile force and will be extinct in less than 6 hours. We are the only military force close enough to help them. She paused, letting that information sink in across all 20 ships of her fleet. I will not lie to you. The enemy outnumbers us by a huge amount. Many of us may not survive this battle. Earth Command has not authorized this mission. If you object to this decision, note it in your log, and you will face no consequences. But I am taking this fleet to help the Valora because it is the right thing to do. Because when someone calls for help, we answer. That is what it means to be human. She closed the channel and looked at her officers. Sound battle stations, navigation, plot a course to the Valora system, maximum speed. Engineering, I want every ship running hot. We are going to war. The UES Indomitable's engines flared bright blue as it accelerated. Behind it, 19 other human warships did the same. They formed up into attack formation and jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward a battle that would change the galaxy forever. On Station Watchpoint 7, Tixala watched the human fleet's transponder signals disappear as they entered FTL travel. She had done what she thought was right. But now, as the reality of what she had set in motion became clear, she felt afraid. The humans were coming, the Death Worlders were coming, and nobody knew if that was salvation or simply another kind of disaster. Velthon stood beside her, his crystal body pulsing with anxious energy. What have we done? He whispered. The only thing we could, Tixala replied. We gave the Valora a chance. In 2 hours they would find out if that chance was enough. The UES Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Valora space. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her hands gripped tight on the railing. What she saw on the main display made her blood run cold. The Devourx swarm covered the view screen like a living nightmare. Billions of bioships moved together in patterns that looked almost beautiful if you did not know what they were doing. Each ship was organic, grown rather than built. They ranged in size from small fighters the size of cars to massive carriers as big as cities, and they were everywhere. Tactical analysis, Chen ordered, her voice steady despite what she was seeing. Lieutenant Ramos worked his controls quickly. Confirmed presence of Devourx swarm. Initial count suggests 4 billion individual bioships. Mass ranges from 0.5 tons to 50 million tons. They are currently attacking 3 Valora colony worlds and moving toward the main homeworld. Commander Park pulled up closer views on the secondary screens. What they showed was horror. Valora cities were burning. The Valora themselves were a species that looked like large butterflies with 6 limbs. They were peaceful, artistic, and completely unprepared for this kind of attack. Evacuation ships tried to lift off from the planet surfaces, carrying refugees to safety. The Devourx swarmed over them like piranhas. The bioships tore the evacuation vessels apart in mid-flight. Chen could see thousands of Valora falling through the air. Their wings spread uselessly as they dropped to their deaths. Sir, Lieutenant Ramos said quietly, long-range sensors show approximately 10 billion Valora on the homeworld. Current attack patterns suggest the swarm will reach the planet in 4 hours and 30 minutes. Chen studied the tactical display. The Devourx had organized their fleet into 3 main groups. One group was finishing the destruction of the first colony world. Another was attacking the second and third colonies. The largest group, maybe 2 billion ships, was forming up for the final assault on the Valora homeworld. Fleet status, Chen ordered. All 20 ships reporting ready for combat, Commander Park replied. Weapons are armed, shields are at maximum, crews are at battle stations, and good. Chen pulled up a communication channel to all her ships. This is Admiral Chen to all vessels. You can see what we are facing. 4 billion enemy ships, 20 human ships. Those are bad odds, she paused, then continued. But we are not here to win. We are here to buy time. Every Devourex ship we destroy is one less ship attacking those colonies. Every minute we keep this swarm busy is another minute for Valora civilians to evacuate. We are going to hit them hard, hit them fast, and make them pay for every inch of space. She looked at her tactical officer. Lieutenant Ramos, I want a firing solution on the densest concentration of enemy ships. We are going to punch right through the middle of their formation. Admiral, Commander Park said carefully, that will put us in the center of the swarm. We will be surrounded. Yes, Chen agreed, but that is where we can do the most damage. Helm, bring us about. Full attack speed. All ships execute Formation Hammer. The human fleet began to move. Formation Hammer was something that only human ships could do. It required acceleration rates that would kill most alien species. The ships boosted to 3 gravities, then 4, then 5. Inside the vessels, human crews felt the crushing weight but stayed at their posts. Other species needed special chambers and drugs just to survive acceleration above 2 gravities. Humans trained in it. They built their ships around it. They used it as a weapon. The fleet accelerated to speeds that made the Devourex sensors struggle to track them. Then they hit the swarm like a hammer hitting glass. The UES Indomitable fired every weapon it had. Kinetic rail guns launched tungsten slugs at a fraction of light speed. Each slug hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. Missile pods opened and released hundreds of nuclear-tipped warheads. Point defense lasers created a web of death around the ship. The Devourex bioships had never faced anything like this. Their organic armor could absorb laser fire and heal from conventional weapons, but nothing could heal from a direct hit by a kinetic slug moving at 30,000 kilometers per second. The bioships simply exploded. Their organic matter vaporized instantly. Target destroyed, Lieutenant Ramos called out. Another target destroyed. Multiple targets destroyed. Sir, we are cutting through them like they are made of paper. The other human ships followed the Indomitable into the swarm. The destroyers moved in coordinated pairs, covering each other. The frigates used their smaller size to dodge between the larger Devourex carriers. The cruisers formed a defensive wall, their heavy weapons clearing space for the rest of the fleet. On the surface of Valora Prime, the main homeworld, millions of Valora looked up at the sky. They could see the battle happening in orbit. Bright flashes marked where ships died. The Valora had no real military. They had never needed one. Their civilization was built on art, philosophy, and peaceful trade. Now they could only watch and hope. A young Valora named Kestala stood with her family in one of the designated evacuation zones. She held her younger sibling close as they watched the sky. "Who is fighting up there?" she asked her parent. "I do not know," her parent replied. The council said help was too far away, but someone was fighting. And whoever they were giving the Valora hope. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction. In the first 10 minutes of combat, the human fleet had destroyed over 50,000 Devourex bioships. The swarm was reacting with confusion. They had never encountered resistance like this before. "They are trying to surround us," Commander Park reported. "Enemy ships are moving to cut off our exit vector." "Let them," Chen said. "All ships continue forward advance. Target the largest bioships first. I want their command structures disrupted." The battle continued. Human ships moved through the swarm like sharks through a school of fish. Their weapons never stopped firing. But the Devourex had numbers on their side. Slowly, inevitably, they began to adapt. The bioships started coordinating their attacks. Instead of swarming randomly, they formed into organized groups. Hundreds of ships would focus fire on a single human vessel, their biological weapons eating through shields and armor. "Admiral, the destroyer UES Thermopylae is reporting critical damage," Lieutenant Ramos said. "They have lost main power. Life support is failing. Captain Webb is ordering his crew to evacuate." Chen pulled up a direct line to the Thermopylae. Captain Marcus Webb's face appeared on screen. He was bleeding from a head wound and smoke filled his bridge behind him. "Captain, get your people to the escape pods," Chen ordered. Webb smiled. But it was the smile of a man who had already made his decision. "Negative, Admiral. We have a better idea. My engines are gone, but I still have maneuvering thrusters, and my reactor is intact." Chen understood immediately what he was planning. "Captain, that is not necessary." "Yes, Admiral, it is." Webb looked at someone off-screen, then back at Chen. We have done the math. If we ram that hive carrier at full speed and detonate our reactor core, we can take out maybe 40 or 50,000 enemy ships. That is worth one destroyer. Marcus, Chen said quietly, using his first name. You have 300 people on that ship. I know, Admiral, and every single one of them volunteered for this mission. Webb's expression became serious. We knew what we signed up for. We came here to save the Valora. Let us do that. Chen wanted to order him to stand down, but she knew he was right. One destroyer with a dead engine was useless in this battle, but one destroyer used as a weapon could change everything. You are a credit to the service, Captain, Chen said. Godspeed, Webb saluted. Tell Earth we bought them time. Then the communication cut off. The Thermopylae turned toward the largest concentration of Devourex bioships. Its maneuvering thrusters fired, pushing it forward despite its damaged state. The crew worked frantically, redirecting power to the reactor, preparing for overload. The Devourex tried to stop it. Hundreds of bioships swarmed the crippled destroyer, their weapons tearing into its hull. But the Thermopylae kept moving forward. Nothing would stop it now. Captain Webb stood on his bridge as alarms screamed and fires burned around him. He thought about Earth, about the green hills where he grew up, about his family who would never know how he died. Then he pressed the final button. The Thermopylae's reactor core went critical. For a brief moment, a new sun was born in the darkness of space. The explosion was so bright that Valora watching from the planet's surface had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the Thermopylae was gone. And so were 43,000 Devourex bioships. The shockwave from the explosion rippled through the swarm. Bioships tumbled out of control. The coordinated attack patterns fell apart as the Devourex tried to understand what had just happened. All ships, press the attack now, Chen ordered. Do not give them time to recover. The human fleet surged forward. They poured fire into the confused swarm. Tens of thousands more Devourex ships died in the next 5 minutes. But the swarm was learning. And slowly the Devourex were coming back together. Their numbers were too great. For every bioship the humans destroyed, 1,000 more took its place, Admiral, Commander Park said. We have lost 20% of our ammunition. Shields are down to 60% across the fleet. We cannot keep this pace up much longer. Chen knew he was right. But she also knew they had accomplished something important. They had disrupted the Devourex attack on the colonies. They had bought the Valora time to evacuate. And they had shown the swarm that someone was willing to fight back. How long until Council reinforcements arrive? Chen asked. 2 hours and 40 minutes, Lieutenant Ramos replied. Chen did the math in her head. They needed to hold out for almost 3 more hours. Against 4 billion enemy ships. With ammunition running low and shields failing. Then we fight for 3 more hours, she said simply. All ships fall back to defensive formation. We are going to make them work for every kill. And we are going to save as many Valora as we possibly can. The human fleet regrouped and formed a defensive sphere around the third colony world. Valora evacuation ships lifted off under their protection, carrying millions of refugees to safety. The Devourex tried to break through, but every approach vector was covered by human weapons. On the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Chen watched her tactical display and counted the minutes. They had bought the Valora time. Now they just had to survive long enough for help to arrive. And in the darkness of space, the battle continued. Human ships and Devourex bioships fighting in a dance of death. Fire and explosions lit up the void, and on the planet below, the Valora watched and hoped and prayed that anyone would survive to tell their story. The Deathworlders had come to save them. Now the galaxy would see what humanity was truly capable of when they fought to protect the innocent. The battle had been going for 2 hours. Admiral Chen's fleet had lost 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, and 1 cruiser. The remaining ships were battered and low on ammunition, but they were still fighting, and more importantly, they were still winning. On Station Watch Point 7, Tixala and Velthon watched the battle through long-range sensors. They could not believe what they were seeing. The humans had charged directly into a swarm of 4 billion enemy ships and had somehow survived. More than survived. They had killed over 200,000 Devourex bioships and saved millions of Valora civilians. This is impossible, Velthon said, his crystal body flashing with colors of confusion. No species fights like this. No crew can survive that level of acceleration. No military force would sacrifice themselves for aliens they have never met. But they are doing it, Tixala replied. She pulled up detailed analysis of the human tactics. Look at this. Their ships accelerate at rates that should kill the crew, but somehow their crews survive. Our medical scanners show human heart rates above 200 beats per minute for sustained periods. They are operating under stress levels that would shut down any council species. Velthon studied the data. It is their death world evolution. Humans evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill them. Their bodies adapted to survive extreme conditions. High stress, high pain. They can push through damage that would incapacitate us. It is not just physical, Tixella observed. Watch their behavior patterns. That destroyer captain who sacrificed his ship. He knew he was going to die. His crew knew they were going to die. And they did it anyway. What kind of species does that? A terrifying one, Velthon said quietly. The Galactic Council was watching the same data feeds. The emergency session had reconvened, but now nobody was arguing. They were all watching in shocked silence as 20 human ships held off an entire Deverek swarm. Ambassador Thelnara spoke first. We need to send them support immediately. They cannot hold out much longer. Our third fleet is still an hour away, Council member Rax replied. But I am authorizing them to maximum speed. The humans have earned our assistance. They have earned more than that, another council member said. They have earned our respect. On the Indomitable, Admiral Chen was about to give an order that would change the nature of the battle entirely. She had been holding back one of humanity's most effective weapons. But now with the situation becoming desperate, it was time to use it. Commander Park, prepare to deploy the Marines, she said. Park looked at her with surprise. Admiral, boarding actions against Deverek's bioships. That is incredibly dangerous. Everything about this mission is dangerous, Chen replied. But we need to slow down the swarm's ability to coordinate. That means destroying their larger command ships from the inside. Prepare drop pods. Full combat deployment. Throughout the fleet, human Marines received their orders. They had been waiting for this moment. While the Navy fought ship to ship, the Marines would take the war directly to the enemy. Gunnery Sergeant Rita Okonkwo checked her squad's equipment one final time. She was a tall woman with dark skin and eyes that had seen combat on 4 different worlds. Her Marines were the best humanity could produce. They had trained in zero-gravity combat, hostile environment warfare, and close-quarters battle against impossible odds. Listen up, she told her squad over their communication network. We are going into those bioships and we are going to plant antimatter charges on their command centers. It will be dark, hostile, and the enemy will be trying to kill us every second. So basically Tuesday. A few of her Marines laughed nervously. They were scared. But they were also ready. Drop pods launching in 60 seconds, the announcement came over the ship's communication system. Marines, secure for launch. Sergeant Okonkwo sealed her combat armor and connected to the squad network. Her armor was a marvel of human engineering. It could survive vacuum, protect against most weapons, and enhance her strength by a factor of 5. It also had enough medical systems to keep her alive through injuries that would kill an unarmored human. The drop pod shook as it launched from the Indomitable. Okonkwo and her squad were pressed back into their seats as the pod accelerated at 10 gravities. Then they were in space, falling toward one of the massive Devourex hive carriers. Incoming fire, the pod's computer announced calmly. Evading. The pod twisted and turned as Deverek's weapons tried to hit it. Hundreds of drop pods filled the space around the hive carrier. Some were destroyed, bright flashes marking where Marines died, but most got through. Okonkwo's pod hit the surface of the bioship and immediately began drilling through the organic hull. Acid sprayed as the drill bit through layers of living tissue. Then the pod's doors blew open and the Marines rushed out. The interior of the Devourex ship was like something from a nightmare. Everything was organic. Walls that pulsed like living flesh. Corridors that looked like intestines. The smell was terrible, a mix of decay and chemicals that made even the sealed combat suits feel inadequate. Squad, form up, Okonkwo ordered. We follow the map to the command center. Kill anything that moves. They moved through the corridors quickly. Deverek's defender organisms appeared, creatures that were part of the ship itself. They looked like giant insects crossed with crabs, all claws and armor and teeth. The Marines opened fire with their weapons. Bullets and plasma bolts tore through the defenders. Okonkwo shot one creature in what she hoped was its head. It kept coming. She shot it again, it fell. These things do not die easy, she said over the squad network. Nothing worth killing ever does, replied Corporal Martinez. shooting down 2 more defenders with his heavy plasma rifle. They fought their way deeper into the bioship. Okonkwo's suit was taking damage. Claws scraped across her armor. Acid sprayed from dying defenders, eating into the protective layers. Her suit's medical system reported 3 cracked ribs and a dislocated shoulder. She ignored the warnings and kept moving. They reached the command center. It was a massive chamber filled with organic technology that pulsed with bioluminescent light. At the center was something that might have been a brain, a huge mass of tissue that coordinated the entire hive carrier. "Plant the charges," Okonkwo ordered. "We have 2 minutes before this place gets very unfriendly." Her squad moved with practiced efficiency. Antimatter charges were placed around the command center, each one carefully positioned for maximum effect. Okonkwo checked the timer. 90 seconds until detonation. "Time to go," she said. Back to the extraction point, they ran. Behind them, more defenders poured into the corridors. The bioship knew it was dying, and was trying to take the Marines with it. The walls themselves began to attack, growing spikes and tentacles that grabbed at the fleeing humans. Corporal Martinez went down as a tentacle wrapped around his leg. "Keep going," he shouted. "I will buy you time." "Like hell you will," Okonkwo replied. She turned back, firing her weapon at the tentacle. It released Martinez and he scrambled to his feet. Together they ran for the extraction point. The antimatter charges detonated just as Okonkwo's squad reached their drop pod. The explosion tore through the hive carrier from the inside. The massive bioship began to break apart, its organic systems failing as the command center was destroyed. "Extraction successful," Okonkwo reported to the Indomitable. "Target destroyed. We are heading home." Across the battlespace, similar reports came in from other Marine squads. Dozens of Devour-X hive carriers were dying from the inside, destroyed by human boarding parties. The swarm was being decapitated. On Station Watchpoint 7, Velthon watched the tactical displays with something close to horror. "They sent troops inside the Devour-X ships," he said. "That should be impossible. The environment inside those bioships would kill most species within minutes. The pressure, the chemicals, the hostile organisms. But not humans," Tixala said. She pulled up medical data that the human ships were broadcasting. "Look at this. One of their Marines is still fighting with 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and severe lacerations. Her medical system says she should be unconscious. But she is still giving orders and leading her squad." Velthon felt something that his species rarely experienced. Fear. Not fear of the Devour-X, but fear of what humanity represented. These were beings who simply refused to quit. They pushed through pain, through injury, through impossible odds. They did not break. "What have we unleashed?" Velthon whispered. On the Valora homeworld, the evacuation was going better than anyone had hoped. Millions of Valora were being loaded onto ships and transported to safety. The human fleet's defensive formation was holding, buying precious time for the civilians to escape. But the Devour-X were not giving up. The Queen Mind, the central intelligence controlling the entire swarm, was focusing more and more resources on destroying the human fleet. She could not understand these strange creatures who fought with such determination. Every time her forces adapted to human tactics, the humans changed their tactics. Every time she thought she had them surrounded, they found a way to break free. The Queen Mind had consumed hundreds of civilizations. None had fought like this. These humans were different, dangerous, and they were costing her more bioships than she had lost in the past 10 years combined. She made a decision. She would show these humans what true horror looked like. She would break them psychologically since she could not break them militarily. The Queen Mind ordered her forces to broadcast a signal on all frequencies. The signal showed captured human prisoners from an earlier skirmish. The humans were being slowly consumed, their bodies broken down into organic matter to fuel more bioships. The Queen Mind expected the human fleet to surrender when they saw this. Instead, she triggered something far worse. Admiral Chen watched the broadcast. Her face became very still. Around the bridge, her crew's expressions hardened into something cold and terrible. The Devour-X had made a fatal mistake. They had given humanity a reason to be truly angry. "All ships," Chen said, her voice like ice. "We are going to weapons free. Authorization Chen Delta 7. Release all limiters. Deploy restricted munitions. We end this. Now." Throughout the human fleet, weapons that had been kept locked down were now activated. Cluster munitions banned by most civilized species. plasma incendiaries that burned through organic matter like paper, biological agents specifically engineered to target Devour-X metabolism. The human fleet stopped holding back. They stopped trying to be civilized. They showed the Devour-X what a true Death World species could do when you made them angry. The destruction was terrible and efficient. Entire sections of the swarm simply disappeared under the human assault. Bioships that had survived conventional weapons melted under plasma fire. The biological agents spread through the swarm like plague, killing thousands of ships per minute. On the Indomitable, Lieutenant Ramos watched his tactical display with wide eyes. "Admiral, we have destroyed 500,000 enemy ships in the last 10 minutes. The swarm is breaking formation. They are retreating." "No," Chen said firmly. "They do not get to retreat. Not after what they did. All ships pursue and destroy. We chase them until they leave this system, or until they are all dead." The human fleet surged forward, hunting the Devour-X with determination. This was no longer just about saving the Valora. This had become personal, and across the galaxy anyone watching the battle understood a new truth. Humanity would fight for strangers. They would sacrifice for innocence. They would hold impossible lines and face overwhelming odds. But if you harmed their own, if you made them truly angry, then nothing in the universe would save you from their wrath. Because humans were not just Death Worlders. They were guardians who would protect the innocent and destroy those who threatened them. The Devour-X were learning this lesson. And it would be the last lesson they ever learned. The queen mind of the Devour-X swarm floated in her massive bio-dreadnought at the center of the remaining fleet. She was an intelligence that had existed for 3,000 years, consuming civilizations and growing stronger with each victory. She had faced desperate resistance before. Every species fought when faced with extinction. But they all broke eventually, except these humans. The Queen Mind reviewed the battle data with her vast consciousness. She had started with 4 billion bioships. Now she had less than 3 billion. In just 3 hours, the humans had destroyed over 1 billion of her fleet. That was unacceptable. Impossible. No species of only 20 ships should be capable of such destruction. She analyzed the human combat patterns. Their tactics were efficient but not particularly sophisticated. What made them dangerous was their refusal to accept defeat. They took damage that should destroy them and kept fighting. They lost ships and kept advancing. They faced impossible odds and acted like they had already won. The Queen Mind could not understand it. Her species had evolved as a collective consciousness. Individual organisms meant nothing. Only the swarm mattered. But these humans seemed to value individual life. Yet they threw those lives away without hesitation when needed. It was a contradiction that made no logical sense. She had tried to break them psychologically by showing them their captured comrades being consumed. That tactic had worked on 70% of species. Instead, it had made the humans fight harder. They had released weapons that were clearly designed to cause maximum suffering, weapons that most civilized species would never use. The Queen Mind made a decision. These humans were too dangerous to leave alive. Even if she lost half her fleet, she would destroy them completely. No survivors, no mercy. The swarm would consume every human ship and every human body. Then she would track their homeworld and consume that too. She sent new commands through her psychic network. The entire swarm, all 3 billion remaining bioships, would focus on a single target, the largest human vessel, the one transmitting command signals. If she could destroy that ship and kill the human leader, the rest would fall apart. On the Indomitable, Lieutenant Ramos saw the swarm movements change. "Admiral, they are reforming. All enemy ships are moving to converge on our position." Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. The Devour-X were bringing everything they had left. 3 billion bioships all focusing on her fleet, specifically focusing on her ship. "They are going for a decapitation strike," Commander Park observed. "If they take out the Indomitable, they think our coordination will collapse." Chen smiled grimly. "Then we will have to disappoint them. How long until Council reinforcements arrive?" 45 minutes, Ramos replied. "And how much ammunition do we have left?" 20% for kinetic weapons, 30% for missiles, 40% for energy weapons. Chen did the math quickly. Not enough to hold off 3 billion ships for 45 minutes. Not even close. They needed a new strategy, something the Devour-X would not expect. "Get me a secure channel to the stealth ship," Chen ordered. "And somebody find me the location of the Devour-X command ship." The UES Shadow of Midnight was humanity's most advanced stealth vessel. It was small, fast, and almost invisible to most sensors. Its commander, James Torres, had been waiting for orders while the rest of the fleet fought. Stealth ships did not participate in direct combat. They had a different purpose. "Shadow of Midnight, this is Admiral Chen," came the transmission. "I need you to do something extremely dangerous and probably impossible." Torres grinned inside his helmet. "Those are my favorite kind of missions, Admiral." "What do you need?" "We have located the Devorex Queen Mine's bio-dreadnought. I need you to get inside that ship and kill her. Without their central intelligence, the swarm will collapse." Torres looked at his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. She pulled up the data on the bio-dreadnought. It was enormous, maybe 50 kilometers long, and it was surrounded by thousands of defensive bioships. Getting close to it would be nearly impossible. "Getting inside would be suicide. Can you give us a distraction?" Torres asked. "The entire fleet will move to engage the main swarm," Chen replied. "That should pull most of their defenses away from the bio-dreadnought. But you will only have a short window." "Understood, Admiral. Shadow of Midnight is moving into position." The stealth ship began to slowly approach the bio-dreadnought. It moved carefully, using the debris from destroyed ships as cover. Its hull was coated with materials that absorbed sensor beams. Its engines ran cold to minimize thermal signature. To the Devorex, it was invisible. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen prepared her fleet for what might be their last battle. "All ships, we are going to draw the swarm away from the bio-dreadnought. That means going deeper into their formation. That means accepting more damage. But if we do not succeed, the Valora die and we die. So we are going to succeed." The human fleet moved forward to meet the approaching swarm. The Devorex crashed into them like a tidal wave. Bioships by the millions surrounded the human vessels. The battle became a chaotic mess of weapons fire and explosions. The Indomitable shook as Devorex weapons hammered against its shields. Sections of the ship vented atmosphere. Crew members died at their stations, but the ship kept fighting. Chen stood on her bridge, calmly giving orders as the world fell apart around her. "Portside shields are down," Commander Park reported. "We are taking direct hits to the hull." "Divert power from non-essential systems," Chen ordered. "Engineering, I need those shields back up." "Working on it, Admiral," came the reply. "But we have lost 3 shield generators. I can give you maybe 60% coverage. Then make sure that 60% is covering our critical systems." On the destroyer UES Valiant, Captain Rodriguez watched as swarm ships surrounded her vessel. "All weapons, fire at will. Do not let them get through." Her crew fought desperately, but there were simply too many enemies. A massive hive carrier rammed into the Valiant's side, tearing through the armor. The ship began to break apart. "Abandon ship," Rodriguez ordered. "All hands to escape pods." Her crew evacuated, their pods launching into space even as the Valiant exploded behind them. Other human ships moved to protect the escape pods, taking fire that was meant for the helpless survivors. This was the difference between humans and most other species. Humans never left their people behind, even in the middle of a desperate battle. They protected their wounded and their survivors. It made them predictable in some ways, but it also made them incredibly difficult to truly defeat. The Shadow of Midnight had reached the bio-dreadnought. Torres brought his ship alongside the massive vessel, matching its speed and trajectory. "Prepare for docking. Full stealth protocols. We go in quiet." The stealth ship extended a docking tube and attached it to the bio-dreadnought's hull. Torres and his team of special operations soldiers prepared their equipment. They wore advanced combat suits designed for the most hostile environments. Each soldier carried enough weapons to arm a small platoon. "Remember," Torres told his team, "we get in, we find the Queen Mine, we plant the graviton bomb, and we get out. Simple." "Nothing about this is simple, sir," said Sergeant Chen, checking her weapon. "That is why they pay us the big money," Torres replied. He opened the airlock. "Let's go save the galaxy." The team moved into the bio-dreadnought. The interior was worse than any of the smaller bioships. The walls pulsed with organic life. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors. The temperature was hot and humid, like being inside a living creature, which technically they were. Torres led his team deeper into the ship, following the layout that intelligence had provided. The Devorex defenders appeared quickly, but these were not the mindless organisms from the smaller ships. These were elite guardians, larger and more intelligent. They fought with coordination and strategy. The team's weapons fired, cutting down defenders. But there were always more. Sergeant Chen went down as a defender's claw pierced her armor.
"Keep going," she gasped.
"Do not stop for me." Torres wanted to help her, but he knew she was right. The mission mattered more than any individual. He kept moving, his remaining team following. They fought through corridor after corridor, leaving a trail of dead defenders behind them. The graviton bomb was heavy, carried by Private Jackson. It was humanity's most powerful weapon, a device that could collapse space itself. Using it inside a ship meant certain death for anyone nearby. Everyone on the team knew they probably would not survive this mission. They reached the Queen Mind's chamber. It was enormous, a space the size of a city block, and at the center, floating in some kind of organic fluid, was the Queen Mind herself. She was beautiful in a terrible way. A massive organism covered in bioluminescent patterns. Thousands of neural connections linked her to the bio-dreadnought and through it to the entire swarm. The Queen Mind's consciousness touched Torres's mind. He felt her presence ancient and powerful. She spoke directly into his thoughts. "You are brave, little human, but you are too late. Your fleet is dying. Your species will be consumed." Torres smiled inside his helmet. "Maybe. But we are taking you with us." He activated the graviton bomb. The Queen Mind realized what was happening. She screamed, a psychic scream that tore through the swarm. Every Devorex organism felt her terror. She tried to stop the bomb, sending defenders to kill the humans. But Torres's team formed a defensive perimeter. Fighting to the last, Private Jackson fell. Then Corporal Williams, then Lieutenant Kim. Torres stood alone, firing his weapon with one hand while protecting the armed graviton bomb with his body. Defenders swarmed over him. His armor was torn apart. He felt claws and teeth ripping into his flesh. "Worth it," he whispered. Then the graviton bomb detonated. The explosion was strange. There was no fire, no shockwave. Instead, space itself collapsed inward. The bio-dreadnought was crushed into a point of infinite density, taking the Queen Mind and everything nearby with it. Then the collapsed space rebounded, exploding outward with incredible force. On the Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched as the bio-dreadnought simply vanished from her sensors. "What just happened?" she asked. "Graviton bomb detonation confirmed," Lieutenant Ramos replied. "The bio-dreadnought is destroyed. The Queen Mind is dead." For a moment, nothing happened. The swarm kept attacking. Then, like a switch being flipped, the Devorex bioships stopped fighting. They began to drift aimlessly. Some attacked each other in confusion. The coordinated swarm intelligence was gone. Without the Queen Mind to direct them, the bioships were just mindless animals. "All ships, ceasefire," Chen ordered. "Target only bioships that continue to show aggressive behavior. The rest will die on their own." Across the battle space, the Devorex swarm was falling apart. Bioships collided with each other. Some simply shut down, their organic systems failing without the Queen Mind's guidance. Within an hour, the threat would be completely eliminated. "Admiral," Commander Park said quietly, "we are receiving a signal from the Council fleet. They are entering the system now." Chen looked at the main display. The Galactic Council's 3rd Defense Fleet dropped out of FTL travel, hundreds of ships arriving to help. But the battle was already over. 20 human ships had defeated a Devorex swarm that should have killed them all. "Send a message to the Council fleet," Chen said. "Tell them the Valora are safe. Tell them the threat has been neutralized. And tell them Earth sends its regards." She looked around her damaged bridge, at her exhausted crew, at the tactical display showing their heavy losses. They had paid a terrible price. But they had won. "Commander Park," Chen said, "begin rescue operations for our escape pods and any Valora survivors. And someone get me a damage report. I want to know which of our ships can still fly and which ones need to be towed home." As the human fleet began its recovery operations, the Valora on their homeworld looked up at the sky. The battle was over. They had survived. And they owed their lives to a species they had barely known existed. On the surface, Kestala held her younger sibling and cried tears of relief. "We are safe," she whispered. "The humans saved us." 3 days had passed since the battle. The Valora system was still filled with debris, the remains of millions of destroyed bioships floating in orbit. But it was also filled with life. The Valora had survived. 8 billion beings who should have been extinct were alive because 20 human ships had answered their distress call. Admiral Sarah. Chen stood in the temporary command center on Valora Prime. Through the window, she could see human soldiers and sailors working alongside Valora civilians. They were rebuilding damaged structures, distributing medical supplies and helping establish refugee centers. It was strange to watch her warriors, people who had fought with such terrible efficiency 3 days ago, now playing with Valora children and helping elderly Valora carry supplies. Admiral Chen, a soft voice said behind her. She turned to see High Curator Vestala, the leader of the Valora civilization. Vestala was old, her butterfly-like wings showing signs of age, but her eyes were sharp and filled with emotion. I wanted to thank you personally before the council arrives. Chen bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. We only did what anyone should do, High Curator. You called for help, we answered. No, Vestala said firmly. What you did was far more than that. The Galactic Council debated for hours while my people died. You acted immediately. You sacrificed your own people to save mine. That is not something I will ever forget. The High Curator's voice became softer. I watched the battle from our observation stations. I saw your destroyer, the Thermopylae, ram into the Devourix fleet. I saw 300 humans die to save millions of my people. Why, you did not know us. We had never even met humans before that day. Chen was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. Because that is what we do, she finally said. Humanity spent millions of years fighting to survive on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned that the only way to survive was to help each other. We learned that every life matters. When we finally reached the stars, we brought that lesson with us. She looked out the window again. Yes, we are dangerous. Yes, we come from a death world. But that same world taught us compassion. It taught us that sometimes you have to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, even if it costs you everything. Vestala was silent, trying to understand these strange beings who had saved her people. Finally, she spoke. The galaxy has called you primitive. They have called you dangerous. They have been afraid of you. I think they were afraid of the wrong things. Before Chen could respond, Commander Park entered the room. Admiral, the council delegation has arrived. Ambassador Thelnara is requesting a formal meeting. Then we should not keep them waiting, Chen said. She turned to Vestala. Will you join us, High Curator? I would not miss this for anything, Vestala replied. The meeting took place in the Valora Government Center, one of the few buildings that had survived the Devourix attack intact. Ambassador Thelnara led the council delegation. With her were representatives from a dozen different species, including Velthon and Tixala from Station Watchpoint 7. Thelnara was a skilled diplomat who had negotiated peace treaties and trade agreements across the galaxy. But as she looked at Admiral Chen, she found herself uncertain how to begin. How did you thank someone who had done the impossible? Admiral Chen, Thelnara started. The Galactic Council has asked me to express their deepest gratitude for your actions. You and your fleet saved an entire civilization from extinction. We are in your debt. We did our duty, Chen replied simply. Nothing more. No? Velthon spoke up, his crystal body flashing with intense colors. You did far more than duty. I watched that battle, Admiral. I watched you fight against impossible odds. I watched your people sacrifice themselves. I watched tactics that should not work but somehow did. I need to understand how. Chen smiled slightly. How did we win? Or how did we survive? Both, Velthon said. You were outnumbered 200 million to 1. You should have been destroyed in the first 10 minutes. Instead, you destroyed over 1 billion enemy ships and survived long enough for our fleet to arrive. That should be impossible. Chen walked to the window and looked out at her people working with the Valora. We won because we refused to lose. We survived because we come from a world that taught us how to endure. You want to know the secret of humanity? We are stubborn. We do not know when to quit. And we fight hardest when we are protecting others. She turned back to face the council delegation. You call us Death Worlders like it is something to be afraid of. Maybe you are right to be afraid. We are dangerous. We evolved in the environment that would kill most species in days. We learned to fight, to endure pain, to push through injuries that would stop anyone else. But we also learned something else. We learned that survival means cooperation. We learned that protecting the weak makes everyone stronger. We learned that sometimes you have to sacrifice for the greater good. Tixala, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. We have studied your species since this battle. Your medical files show injuries that should have killed your people. Broken bones, punctured organs, severe blood loss. Yet they kept fighting. How is that possible? Pain is just information, Chen said. It tells you something is wrong, but it does not have to stop you. Humans are very good at ignoring pain when we need to. We call it pushing through. Every human child learns to do it. Fall down, get back up. Get hurt, keep going. It is how we survived on Earth. It is how we survive everywhere. Ambassador Thelnara looked troubled. Admiral, I must be honest with you. Many council species are afraid of humanity. After watching this battle, they are more afraid than ever. They see beings who can fight through injuries that would kill them, who can endure acceleration that would liquefy their bodies, who throw themselves at impossible odds and somehow win. They fear what you might do if you ever turned that capability against the council. Chen's expression became serious. Then they do not understand us at all. Yes, we are capable of great violence, but we are also capable of great compassion. Look out that window, Ambassador. See my Marines? 3 days ago, they were fighting for their lives. Today, they are helping Valora children build shelters. That is humanity. We fight when we must, but we help when we can. She stepped closer to the council delegation. Earth does not want to conquer the galaxy. We do not want to dominate other species. We want to be part of something larger than ourselves. We want to help protect the innocent. We want to be the ones who answer when someone calls for help. That is why we came to Valora. That is why we will always come. High Curator Vestala stepped forward. If I may speak, she said. The council can debate humanity's nature all they want. I know what they are. 3 days ago, I watched my civilization face extinction. I watched billions of my people prepare to die. Then the humans came. They came without hesitation, without asking for payment, without demanding anything in return. They fought for us. They died for us. And they saved us. Her voice became stronger. The council calls them primitive deathworlders. I call them heroes. The galaxy can fear them if it chooses. I will be grateful to them for the rest of my life. There was silence in the room. Finally, Ambassador Thelnara spoke. The council has made a decision. After witnessing your actions here, we are prepared to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. No more probationary status. Full rights and responsibilities. We are also proposing something called the Chen Doctrine. The Chen Doctrine? Admiral Chen asked. Named after you, Thelnara explained. It is a new military alliance. Humanity will become the Council's rapid response force. When a member species faces imminent danger, Earth's military will be authorized to respond immediately, without waiting for Council debate or approval. You will have full authority to act in defense of any Council species under attack. Thelnara paused. In exchange, the Council will provide Earth with advanced technology, trade rights, and full diplomatic status. We will also establish training programs where Council species can learn from human military doctrine. Chen considered this carefully. So you want humanity to be the galaxy's guardians? The ones who respond when others are in trouble? Yes, Thelnara said, because this battle proved something important. When civilizations face extinction, they do not need debate. They do not need careful consideration. They need someone who will act. Someone who will fight. Someone who will stand between them and destruction, no matter the cost. That is humanity. Chen looked at her officers, then at the Valora leader, then out at her people working with aliens they had just met. She thought about Captain Webb and the Thermopylae, about Lieutenant Commander Torres and his sacrifice, about all the men and women who had died to save strangers. I will need to discuss this with Earth Command, Chen said. But speaking personally, I believe this is exactly why we went to the stars. Not to conquer, but to protect. Not to dominate, but to serve. If the galaxy needs guardians, then humanity will stand that watch. Ambassador Thelnara smiled, her water-like skin rippling with emotion. Then I believe we have the beginning of a new era. The age of humanity's guardianship. Over the next few days, the news of the Battle of Valora spread across the galaxy. Every species on every world heard the story of 20 human ships that had faced 4 billion enemies and won. They heard about the destroyer that sacrificed itself, about the Marines who fought through impossible injuries, about the stealth team that had killed the Queen Mind. Some species were inspired. They saw humanity as an example of what courage and determination could achieve. Others were afraid. They saw a species too dangerous to be trusted. But everyone had to acknowledge one simple truth. When the Valora needed help, only humanity had answered. On Earth, the story was received with mixed emotions. Pride in what their fleet had accomplished, grief for the lives lost, and determination to honor those sacrifices by living up to the example they had set. Admiral Chen returned to Earth 3 months later. She was greeted as a hero. Parades filled the streets. but she spent most of her time visiting the families of those who had died. She personally delivered messages from Captain Webb, from Lieutenant Commander Torres, from every service member who had given their life at Valora. They died saving strangers, she told one family. They died proving that humanity could be trusted. They died making the galaxy a safer place. They died as heroes. 1 year after the battle, a memorial was established on Valora Prime. It was a beautiful garden that combined earth plants with Valora crystal blooms. At its center was a monument listing the names of every human who had died in the battle. 372 names. 372 heroes. High Curator Vestala spoke at the dedication ceremony. These humans came when no one else would. They fought when everyone else hesitated. They sacrificed when everyone else calculated the cost. They are not from our world. They are not our species, but they are our saviors, and we will never forget them. Admiral Chen stood next to the monument, now retired from active service but still wearing her uniform for this occasion. A young Valora child approached her shyly, offering her a bioluminescent flower. "Thank you for saving my family," the child said in carefully practiced English. Chen took the flower gently. "You are welcome," she replied. "We did it because you matter, because every life matters. That is what humanity believes." She looked up at the sky, thinking about her fleet now patrolling the galaxy as the Council's rapid response force, thinking about the new recruits joining Earth's military, inspired by the Battle of Valora, thinking about the future. Humanity had found its place in the cosmos, not as conquerors, not as merchants, but as guardians, as protectors, as the ones who would stand between civilization and chaos, the ones who would answer when others called for help. The Deathworlders had become the galaxy's defenders, and they would never abandon that duty. On Earth, at military recruitment centers across the planet, young men and women lined up to join the service. They had heard the stories. They wanted to be part of something greater than themselves. They wanted to make a difference. Above the entrance to every recruitment center was a new motto, adopted after the Battle of Valora. It was simple, direct, and absolutely true. When they call, we answer. When they fall, we stand. When they fear, we fight. We are humanity. We are guardians. We never leave anyone behind. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, new distress signals were being transmitted. New civilizations faced threats they could not handle alone. But now they had hope, because they knew that somewhere out there, a fleet of human ships was ready to respond. The Deathworlders were listening. And when the call came, they would answer. They always did. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to be guardians of the galaxy. The age of humanity's guardianship had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.